Gentlemen, we've obviously reached a quorum. We're about to begin. A couple of minutes after 7, which has been great. I'm happy to see everybody out tonight. A quorum being present, this special town meeting shall now come to order. We have a return of the warrant by Constable Brian Silva. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the special town meeting so that we may open the annual town meeting. Do I have a second? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's a vote. And upstairs, I'm going to need the lights back a little higher in the auditorium on the people. Thank you. A quorum being present, this annual town meeting shall now come to order. We have a return of the warrant by Constable Brian Silva. As required by Massachusetts general law, the chief of the fire department, Scott Duffy, asked that I point out the exits from the auditorium in case of an emergency. And obviously, where the doors you came in the rear, there's an exit over here and an exit to my right. I'd like to invite Veterans Agent Tim White up to lead us in the salute to the flag. Would everyone please stand and remain standing for the salute to the flag in a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I would now ask for a moment of silence for all of our deceased former town employees and elected and appointed officials who faithfully served the town of Rockland, for all of our deceased veterans who served in our armed forces, and to all of our deceased residents who have died since our last annual town meeting. Thank you. Please be seated. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the annual town meeting for 2025. On behalf of the town of Rockland, I would like to thank you for attending the meeting this evening so that the town can continue to successfully provide services to our residents and visitors during the fiscal year beginning on July 1st, 2025. Article 3 of the annual town meeting, the budget. When I come to budget Article 3 of the annual town meeting, it has been a practice for the past 5 years to take one vote for the total amount of the budget. This saves calling for 59 separate votes. When we arrive at Article 3, I would have you take a few minutes to allow you time to get the budget in front of you, and we're just beginning on page 11 of the warrant booklet. Then Town Administrator Doug Lapp will give a short overview of the fiscal year 2026 budget. After the town administrator speaks, if there are any questions, concerns, or objections about a certain budget or budgets, please raise your hand and be recognized. Then come forward to speak when I recognize you. If needed, we can vote on a certain budget or budget separately. Then, with no further discussions, a vote will be taken on the total budget listed on page 37. We will also be voting on the Water Department budget, which is Article 4, and the Sewer Department budget, which is Article 6, as their funds come from water and sewer revenue. The special town meeting and annual town meeting are being videotaped by WRPS TV. It is required that all non-registered voters present must sit in the forward rows in the section to my left. If you wish to speak on an article tonight, please raise your hand. When I recognize you, please come to one of the microphones down front, state your name and address before speaking. Please stay in your seat until you are recognized. There'll be no standing in the aisles thinking you will be the next to speak. Each speaker will be allowed up to 5 minutes when speaking on a budget item or article which is being acted upon. No speaker who has previously spoken on the same budget item or article will be recognized until all others who wish to speak have had their opportunity. Now I'd like to recognize the people on the stage. To my very left is Doug Lapp, our town administrator. Next to him is the town accountant, Scott Curtis. Our town clerk, Liza Landy. The gentleman on the other table, the one on the left is our town council attorney, John Clifford, and our land use attorney, Dennis Murphy. Also sitting in the front to my left, the town planner, Allison Quinn, and the assistant town administrator, Courtney Borgard. I'd like to introduce the newly elected officials, and would you please stand? Would they please stand? And would the audience please hold your applause until I have read all the names. Highway Superintendent David Taylor, Town Moderator Kevin Henderson, Select Board members Laurie Childs and Steve O'Donnell, Board of Assessors Diane Molyneux, Board of Health member Michelle Kennedy, Housing Authority member Dorothy Murray, Library trustees Janet Can and Carol Mahoney, Park Commissioner Peter Ewell, also known as Peter Park, Planning Board member James Wells, School Committee members Emily Davidson and Melissa Morrow Small, Sewer Commissioners for the one-year term Walter Simmons, two-year term Michael Mullen Jr., and the three-year term Matt Ryan, and the Water Commissioner Robert Covey Jr. Thank you very much. Now I'd like to introduce the Finance Committee and the Capital Planning Committee. The 2025 Finance Committee members are John Pumphrey, the chairman, who can't be here tonight, Catherine DeSalt, our newest member, Corin Fennell, Robert McDonald, who I'm not sure he was able to make it, Kelly Murphy, William Stewart, William Principe, and Linda Sternfeld. William Principe and Linda Sternfeld also serve on the Capital Planning Committee, which also consists of Christopher Fulton, Richard Harris, Doug Wallow, and Lauren White. I just want to know I have many openings on the Finance Committee and one opening on the Capital Planning Committee. If anyone is interested, you can contact me through the Town Clerk's office or the Office of the Select Board. And on behalf of the Town of Rockland, I'd like to thank our citizens who volunteer to serve as members of the Finance Committee and the Capital Planning Committee. Members of both committees have worked hard this past winter to prepare the fiscal budget to this town meeting so that you, the voters, have the correct and concise information as we progress through town meeting and the warrant booklet provided. The Finance Committee works along with the Town Accountant's Office, the Town Administrator's Office, the Select Board, and then make their best decisions for the town. The members of the Capital Planning Committee have reviewed articles for capital expenditures over $50,000 and a useful life of at least 5 years with inclusion in a 5-year capital improvement plan. Many articles in this year's annual town meeting were required to be reviewed by the Capital Planning Committee, which were explained by Chairman Richard Harris at a recent Selectmen's meeting and were entered into the warrant by the Board of Selectmen. I would now call my three tellers, Christine Campanell, Mary Ryan, and Ian Davidson, down to the front so I may swear them in. I would entertain a motion to adjourn the annual town meeting for the purpose of returning to the special town meeting. Do I have a motion? Second? All those in favor? All those opposed? That's a vote. A quorum being present, I will now call the special town meeting to order. And you can turn to page 11 in your booklet. I'm sorry, before that. I'm a little ahead of myself. Page 4, Article 1, This requires a 9/10 vote. It's for an unpaid bill. I would like to get a unanimous, if it's possible. Will the town vote to authorize the accounting department to pay the following unpaid bills of a prior year as of June 30th, 2024 from the current year departmental budget as listed, or take any other action relative thereto? It's a $325 amount. The above-mentioned invoices were unpaid at the time on June 30th, 2024, and were not requested in time to meet the deadline to be paid via encumbrances, which is before July 15th of 2024. The invoices should be paid as soon as so practical to minimize hardship for the vendors. Requested by the town accountant, approved by the finance committee. Funding source, fiscal year 2025 department budget. All those in favor of adopting Article 1 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's unanimous. Thank you. Will the town vote to transfer from available funds a sum of $350,000 as follows for the fiscal year 2025 snow and ice deficit, or take any other action relative thereto? These items must be addressed as part of the fiscal 2025 budget. Requested by the town accountant, approved by the finance committee. The funding source is free cash. All those in favor of Article 2 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 3. Will the town vote to transfer $500,000 from Article 36 from the May 6, 2024 annual town meeting to the fiscal year 25 school department budget to fund fiscal year 25 out-of-district expenses for the Rockland School Department, or take any action relative thereto? The emergency, this vote is required in order to use these funds in fiscal year 25. It is requested by the school committee, approval by the school committee, finance committee, and select board. The funding source is reuse of Article 36 from May 6, 24 annual town meeting, which was originally appropriated for Eston School HVAC and electrical improvements. All those in favor of adopting Article 3 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 4, will the town vote to authorize the water commissioners to take from the water undesignated fund balance the sum of $30,000 for water storage tank cleaning, or take any other action relative thereto? This vote is required in order to complete this project prior to fiscal year 26 before July 1st. Board of Water Commissioners requested it, approved by the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and funding source is water retained earnings. All those in favor of adopting Article 4 signify with the show of hands. All those a vote, that's a vote. Thank you. Article 5, will the town vote to approve and expend the Community Preservation Fund the sum of $9,850 to supplement the funding for feasibility study for the reconstruction of the Bicentennial Park track, or take any other action relative thereto? The emergency, this vote is required in order to pay for the remaining fiscal year 25 invoices. Requested by the Parks Commission, approval recommended by the Select Board, Park Commissioners, Community Preservation Committee, and the Finance Committee. And the funding source is the Community Preservation Act funds. Budget reserve. All those in favor of adopting Article 5 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. I would ask for a motion to dissolve the special town meeting. Second? All those in favor of dissolving the special town meeting signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. A quorum being present, I will now call the annual town meeting to order. The chair recognizes Finance Committee member Linda Sternfeld.
Mr. Moderator, I make a motion that the first action on each article will be on the Finance Committee recommendation.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of that motion signify with a show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 1, will the town vote to cast votes for 2026 annual town election next year for the election of candidates for the following office, and they're listed in front of you. There's no funding involved here. All those in favor of adopting Article 1 signify with a show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 2, will the town vote to fix the salaries and compensation of all elective officers in the town in the amounts indicated in the department budgets, and make such salaries and compensation effective July 1st, 2025, fiscal year 2026, in accordance with the provisions of the Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 41, Section 108, as amended, and to raise and appropriate such sums of money for the ensuing year, and that all sums be appropriated for the specific purpose designated, and that the same be expended on all such boards and commissions of the town as voted, or take any other action relative thereto. Finance Committee recommends approval. All those in favor of approving Article 2 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. I will now ask Doug Lapp, the town administrator, would like to speak before we get on to the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Regarding the town budget and all the financial articles, I'd like to thank our entire finance team, our assessor, Meg Peterson, our collector, Judy Hardigan, treasurer, Allison Sullivan, assistant town administrator, Courtney Biergard, and especially our town accountant sitting to my left, Scott Curtis. As recommended by the State Department of Revenue, we've continued using conservative budgeting principles. We're careful to not overestimate our revenues nor underestimate our expenses, which has helped us continue to maintain our positive financial position. I'm already losing the audience, I can tell. The proposed FY26 budget before you tonight is balanced. It includes a nearly 4.4% increase to the school department operating budget, plus an additional $600,000 in free cash for extraordinary one-time out-of-district expenses, which are by definition outside of their control. The general government operating budget is increasing by 3.9%. It's a level service budget that does not increase staffing. The most significant dollar increases are in our IT budget due to increased costs for cybersecurity defenses, various computer software licensing fees, replacement of aging photocopiers, website ADA upgrades, and a new report of concern technology for residents to better communicate with various town departments. The next highest increase is in our regional dispatch services, as our multi-year state 911 dispatch grant has expired, and the town is now responsible for 100% of those costs. Lastly, we've included a small line item in the highway department budget for outsourcing engineering costs in order to better comply with various state and local permitting requirements for public works projects. The budget also includes the reestablishment of the wage adjustment obligations account in the select board budget to accommodate yet to be settled FY26 union and non-union wage increases, similar to what we did 3 years ago. We're still in union negotiations, but the amount set aside in this account should be sufficient for fair and reasonable wage increases for our employees in FY26. Since these union contracts are not yet finalized, they're centralized in this one account and are not yet reflected in the individual general government budgets. The individual amounts will be allocated to each department later after the contracts are settled. A few exceptions to that, which you'll see in the line item budget and the warrant, are for the following. A few town employees that are statutorily authorized to have individual employment contracts, so thus their contractually obligated wage increases are reflected in their respective budgets. Also, some union step increases are reflected in the budget that will be required per our existing union contracts. And lastly, a placeholder 2.5% wage increase for our 4 elected department heads, since their salaries can only be set here at town meeting. While there are no staffing or substantive increases to the general government operating budget, there are a few large cost centers which must be funded but are out of our control, such as our county retirement assessment, our health insurance, and property and liability insurance costs, all of which we continuously monitor. We're also proposing small increases to our OPEB and general stabilization accounts. These increases in our reserves, no matter how small, are still very important to help us maintain our strong financial position. I'd now like to make some general comments about the management of our town finances. Our bond rating is excellent. We've continued to maintain a strong AA stable rating by Standard & Poor's, which is a good independent indicator of our positive stewardship of the town's finances. As S&P noted in our last bond rating, and I quote, "Rockland's budgetary performance is strong," unquote. With the help of all of our financial department heads, we similarly successfully pass our rigorous annual external audits every year, which is yet another good independent indicator of our strong financial management. And based on our finance team's recommendations, the Select Board has also adopted formal financial policies for the town approved by the Department of Revenue, which are publicly available on the town website. This helps guide our internal processes and our long-term decision-making. While I truly understand the burden that property taxes impose on many in our community, especially seniors on fixed incomes, it is important to put it in perspective that based on our current tax rate, our average single-family tax bill continues to remain below the statewide average, below the county average, and below the county median. Our current average single-family tax bill is actually in the bottom third in Plymouth County. It's also important to note that many of our neighboring towns are actually presenting their voters with permanent operating budget tax overrides this spring. In Rockland, however, we are not proposing a permanent operating override in this budget. We are living within our means. We are, however, proposing a debt exclusion for a new fire station in Article 23 and a one-time capital outlay expenditure exclusion to fund the one-time purchase of a new fire department ladder truck in Article 24. It's critical to point out that these are the most appropriate methods to fund these types of projects. Municipal finance law is specifically structured in this way to allow for voter approval for these types of projects outside of our operating budget and outside of our existing tax levy limit. It's simply not appropriate to cut an operating budget to fund a large-scale capital project. As an example of this financial principle, you'll remember that both our water and our sewer departments have both sought and received overwhelming voter support for authorizations to issue debt for their PFAS treatment and wastewater treatment plant upgrades without slashing those department budgets. In addition, both of those departments have actually increased their user fees to help fund the associated debt service. So in my opinion, any suggestions to cut the general government budget or the school department operating budget to fund a large-scale capital project is simply not realistic, nor appropriate, nor does it follow best practices by the Department of Revenue. Rest assured, the Finance Committee has met with every department head and reviewed and approved literally every single number in the budget, which is in your warrant, and all the individual capital articles included as well. Furthermore, there is a strong consensus among all the various boards and committees to recommend all of the financial articles in the warrant tonight. With that, I'd like to thank you all for coming to town meeting, and I'd like to thank the school committee and the school department, which is by far our largest department in town, for the extremely positive relationship we've continued to maintain with them during this past year. Our communication and collaboration with school leadership remains strong. And lastly, I'd like to thank the Capital Planning Committee, Community Preservation Committee, Finance Committee, Select Board, department heads, and Town Council for their input, support, and guidance throughout the budget process. We're all working together to help Rockland continue to move forward. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, Article 3. Will the town vote to raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds as indicated such sums of money necessary for the ensuing year in the general fund operating budget or take any other action relative thereto? Do I have any questions? If we don't, I'm going to take one vote on page 37 on the total amount of the entire budget. All those in favor of raising and appropriate the sum of $82,612,389.25 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 4, will the town vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds in the Treasury $4,605,398.03 to be expended under the direction of the Abington-Rockland Joint Waterworks Board of Water Commissioners for the purpose of funding the enterprise fund budget for the Water Department effective fiscal year 2026 with $4,441,454.23 for the Water Department operating budget and an additional $163,943.80 to be transferred to the general fund operating budget for indirect expenses as shown above, or take any other action relative thereto. The budget is on page 38. It was requested by the Board of Water Commissioners. The approval recommended by the Finance Committee and the Select Board. The funding source is water revenues. All those in favor of adopting Article number 4 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 5, will the town vote to authorize the Water Commissioners to take from the Water Undesignated Fund balance the sum of $1,012,500 for the following capital projects or take any other action relative thereto. On the next page, on page 39, it outlines a number of items. What we used to do is we had, I think we have about 15 here. We'd have 15 separate articles. This is all one article now. It all comes from the Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings. So we've consolidated it, so it makes it easier for the residents and makes it for you, the voters, to vote one time. All those in favor of adopting Article 5 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 6, will the town vote to raise and appropriate, borrow, or transfer from available funds in the Treasury $4,402,710.64 to be expended under the direction of the Rockland Board of Sewer Commissioners for the purpose of funding the enterprise fund budget for the Sewer Department effective fiscal year 2026 with $4,337,861.09 for the Sewer Department operating budget and an additional $64,849.55 to be transferred to the general fund operating budget for indirect expenses as shown below, or it's on the next page, or take any other action relative thereto. If you turn to page 40, their budget is outlined on a number of things. It was requested by the Board of Sewer Commissioners, recommended by the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and the funding source is sewer revenues. All those in favor of adopting Article 6, please signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 7. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this gets a little confusing. When this was proposed to the Board of Selectmen, they had to have an article written in order to insert it in the town warrant. Since it regards borrowing money, which is in this case $22 million for the sewer work, there has to be a different motion because the original article was given to the bond council in Boston. They write the motion, and that's what has to be read. And the chairman of the Sewer Commission, Mike Mullen Jr., is going to read that motion that is at the top of the page on page 41. Mr. Mullen.
Good evening, moderator, members of the town meeting. I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $22 million to be expended under the direction of the Rockland Board of Sewer Commissioners for the purpose of funding wastewater treatment improvements and upgrades, including all costs incidental and related thereto, and including without limitation all costs thereof as defined in Section 1 of Chapter 29C of the General Laws. And to meet this appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow $22 million pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 44, and/or Chapter 29C, or any other enabling authority, and issue bonds and notes of the town. Therefore, that any such bonds and notes shall be general obligations of the town, but it is the intention of the town that the debt service first be paid from sewer enterprise fund receipts, that the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow all or a portion of such amount from the Massachusetts Clean Water Trust established pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 29C, and in connection therewith, to enter into a loan agreement and/or security agreement with the trust, and otherwise to contract with the trust and the Department of Environmental Protection with respect to such loan, and for any federal or state aid available for the project or for the financing thereof, and that the Select Board of Sewer Commissioners, or other appropriate local body or official is authorized to enter into a project regulatory agreement with the Department of Environmental Protection to expend all funds available for the project and to take any other action necessary to carry out the project.
I have a motion by Mr. Mullen and a second. Mr. Mullen, do you wish to address the body regarding this article?
Yeah, just really to quickly summarize, this project is like a long time in the making and has been underway for a number of years. First with the prior board of our sewer commissioners really worked to get everything underway and to really begin addressing the long-time challenges that we've had at our wastewater treatment facility. This, like in the borrowing here, would specifically allow the town to obtain and adhere to the requirements to obtain a state revolving fund loan, which is a very low interest loan that, compared to if we went out for a traditional bond, the interest rate's like a much cheaper. So this project would allow us to begin addressing phase one of the project, which we are currently in the design process. We have to have this approval really solidified by the end of the fiscal year, in order, as I mentioned, to meet all the SRF requirements and regulatory requirements, really to meet the expectations and the requirements to be able to secure the low interest loan that I mentioned.
All right, does the current acting superintendent want to speak? Dave Taylor?
I can just go through this very quick. The total overall project is going to be $35 million. You already have the $1 million that from the ARPA funds, $1.5 million, that was for another bond. You voted on back in 2024 that there was a $12.5 million for this project, and we're looking for the additional $22 million to keep this moving forward. It's part of the Clean Water Trust Act, and it's going to be through the DEP. And again, like Mike alluded to, we need to have this into the state by the end of fiscal year this year. It's probably not going to be an active bond until we get into fiscal 26, maybe even fiscal 27 at that point. Okay? Any questions on that? Thank you.
Seeing no questions, I'd like to get it. This is a 2/3 vote because it's borrowing money. I'd like to get a unanimous. Oh, wait a minute. We have a question. Can you come down front, please? I'm sorry I didn't see you right away. The light is blinding, but come on down, state your name and address, and then you can ask your question.
Hi, all. I'm Sejal Shah. I'm 132 Lincoln Road. Nice to see you all. My question was just, I saw numbers of like 35 million, 12 was already appropriated, now we're doing 22. Wanted to make sure I understood that correctly. So that's 33. And then what happens to our water bills, sewer bills? Like what is the impact?
So the past sewer administration has done increments in increases. So they're not direct tax increases, but they are rate increases. So the rates are going up. They're supposed to be 8% for the next 8 years. We had the first rate increase of last year. This year it's going up to 12.5%, and then it's going to be level at that point, 12% across, and then it drops on the back end, back down to 8%, and then 5%, 3%, 2% to a level up. So it's essentially a 10-year process. So.
Person up in here with his hand up, come on down.
Phil Giovanello, 34 Custer Street. On the water and sewerage, all this money we're spending here in our town, what is Abington paying? Are they paying the same as us? Because they're building apartments you can't believe across in the elderly service in Abington, and then on 123. There's no apartments going up around here. So I'd like to know how much they are contributing to, because we don't know how many apartments they're going to be building in Abington, and I'm sure they don't know what we're building here in this town. I like to keep it a small town. I came from Brockton. I saw what happened to Brockton.
Even though this is not the water budget, but it's combined, so I'd like to hear from, I think to answer this gentleman's questions, I will let Crystal Cameron, it is Crystal.
Yep.
I can't see that good there. And if either Dave Taylor or Mike Mullen can answer that question about what Abington does and what, for both of her department and for the sewer department, for Dave Taylor.
Thank you. Water and sewer is completely different. We share a bill, but the rates are different. So there is no combination with the two. A lot of people get confused with that because we share a bill, but it's just cheaper that way for us, so the rates are different. Does that make sense? As far as the loan for the PFAS, it was $13 million for Rockland and $13 million for Abington. So it's 50-50.
I think his question was, Crystal, as far as the water department, because I know up on the tank, it's in Abington, it's Abington Rockland Joint Waterworks. He wants to know, I think he wants to know, if I'm correct, Mr. Giovanello, that on the water side, that you share the bills pretty equally. Is my correct?
Everything's the same. The rates you guys pay in Rockland are the same in Abington. Is that the answer to the question? Okay.
And from the sewer department, I know that there is sewerage, am I correct, Dave, from part of Abington into Rockland?
Right, so there is a small amount of sewerage hookups, but there aren't any new hookups that we're allowing because of the moratorium. Abington gets most of their sewer capabilities from the town of Brockton. So we do have a small amount that goes down Summer Street, Spruce Street, and some connected streets, but as of right now, Abington is not allowed to add users from the town of Rockland. I hope that makes sense. Excuse me? Their rates? No. The Abington, if they're a shared user with the town of Rockland, their rates are the same. Only the shared users.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Giovanello? Any other questions? I'd like to get on the unanimous so I can. If not, my tellers will come forward and we'll count them. All those in favor of adopting Article 7 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed? That's unanimous. Article number 8. Will the town vote to authorize the sewer commissioners to take from sewer undesignated fund balance the sum of $225,000 for the following capital projects or take any other action relative thereto. You have sewer pump repair and replacement, open drainage, and I don't know what WWTP repairs and upgrades are, and the total is $225,000. This is requested by the Board of Sewer Commissioners, recommended by the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and the funding source is the Sewer Enterprise Fund retained earnings. All those in favor of adopting Article number 8 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 9, will the town vote to raise and appropriate to take from available funds the sum of $10,000 to fund the purchase of new valuation and appraisal software or take any other action relative thereto, requested by the Board of Assessors, approved by the Finance Committee and the Select Board. The funding source is free cash. All those in favor of adopting Article 9 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 10, will the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds the sum of $75,000 to fund town capital projects or take any other action relative thereto? This is requested by the town administrator, recommended by the Finance Committee and Select Board, and the funding source is free cash. All those in favor of adopting Article 10 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 11, will the town vote to raise and appropriate to take from available funds the sum of $95,000 to fund the purchase of a new dump truck for the cemetery department or take any other action relative thereto? It's requested by the town administrator, recommended by the Finance Committee, Select Board, and Capital Planning Committee, and the funding source is free cash. All those in favor of adopting Article 11 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 12, will the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds the sum of $801,000 to fund the purchase of equipment for the Rockland Fire Department or take any other action relative thereto? You can see that there is a federal grant match, a fire alarm bucket truck replacement, fire department system radio system replacement, demolish the Lincoln School, and update town hazard mitigation plan. This was requested by the fire chief, approved by the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and the funding source is free cash.
Mr. Moderator, I'd like to speak.
Yes?
Hi, everyone. My name's Peter Dow, 31 Union Street in Rockland, and a member of the Rockland Historical Commission. At our last meeting on April 29th last week, the commission voted to amend this Article 12 to remove the demolition of the Lincoln School for $250,000 appropriation. So I'd like to propose an amendment to Mr. Moderator to amend to remove that appropriation amount from this particular funding.
I have a motion, a second. Mr. Dow, it's going to be required you give me a written, something in writing, unless you've already done it. Make it brief that you want to amend this article. While he's doing that, I have a motion and a second to amend the article to remove the demolition of the Lincoln School. Is that correct, Mr. Dow? Yes, sir. Which would reduce the bottom line to $551,000. Okay. All those in, I'm sorry, Mr. Second. All right, we have a motion and a second to amend the article. This is only on the amendment, it's not on the article itself. All those in favor of amending Article number 12 by removing the part that says demolish the Lincoln School, $250,000, signify with the show of hands. I'm sorry, not yet, we haven't voted, this is only on the amendment, and then I will get to questions. All those in favor of adopting the amendment as proposed by Mr. Dow, taking $250,000 off, signify with the show of hands. All those opposed? The chair is in doubt. Will my counters come forward?
Moderator Henderson, is there any discussion on the amendment?
There will be if we get a vote on it. If the vote goes down, then there will be no discussion. If the vote is in the form of yes, then that's when we'll begin the discussions on the amendment. Okay, all those in favor of adopting taking $250,000 out of this article as amended by Mr. Dow, signify with the show of hands and leave them up until the people counting the ballots counting your hands have gone by you. Section 1 is 32. Section 3, 27. Section 2. 82. All those that oppose the amendment signify with the show of hands and keep them up until they walk by and count you. Thank you. Section 1? 55. Section 3? I'm sorry? 54? Section 2? 66. The amendment is defeated, 175 to 141. No, I need it for my records. All right, on the original article, the total is $801,000. Are there any other questions? Chief Duffy.
Good evening, Rockland. I just want to clear some questions that may be there about the Lincoln School. The reason why it is in this article and not included with anything related with the potential fire station project is the town has to lead by example. We have a building that is old, unused, vacant, and essentially abandoned in town. We have many in town, but we as a town must lead by example. And the demolishing this is the proper route. I understand that some people feel that it has historical significance, but unfortunately it has become a sign of blight within the neighborhood and a building for pests, vermin, and trespassers that could get in there and be potentially injured. So that's why it is being brought up in this article and not within the fire station project article. So I thank you for defeating that amendment.
If there's no other questions, we'll vote now on Article 12. All those in favor of adopting Article 12 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 13, will the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds the sum of $400,000 to fund the following projects for the Rockland Highway Department or take any other action relative thereto? The two projects are repave the Highway Department facility and curbing and walkway improvements on North Avenue. Requested by the Highway Department, recommended by the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and the funding source is free cash. All those in favor of adopting Article 13 signify with a show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 14, will the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds the sum of $45,200 to fund network switch replacements for the Information Technology Department or take any other action relative thereto? This is requested by the IT Director, approval by the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and the funding source is free cash. All those in favor of adopting Article 14 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 15, will the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds the sum of $30,000 to fund the following projects for the Rockland Parks Department or take any other action relative thereto? Hearts of Park repairs and for tree removal and pond sand and the repair the Veterans Memorial Stadium well. Requested by the Park Commissioners, approved by the Finance Committee and the Select Board. Funding source is free cash. All those in favor of adopting Article 15 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 16, will the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds the sum of $30,000 to fund an update of the town's open space and recreation plan or take any other action relative thereto? Requested by the Town Planner, recommended by the Finance Committee, Select Board, and Open Space Committee, and the funding source is free cash. All those in favor of adopting Article 16 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 17, will the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds a sum of $264,754 to fund Police Department capital projects or take any other action relative thereto? And that's going to be used to replace lockers and replace two SUV cruisers. Requested by the Police Chief, approved by the Finance Committee and the Select Board. The funding source is free cash and Marijuana Host Community Agreement Special Purpose Stabilization Fund. This is going to require a 2/3 vote because it is required due to the use of Marijuana Host Community Agreement funds. All those in favor of adopting Article 17 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Unanimous. Will the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds a sum of $8,000 to fund the purchase of new recreation enclosed equipment trailer or take any other action relative thereto? Requested by the Recreation Director, recommended by the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and the funding source is free cash. All those in favor of adopting Article 18 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 19, will the town vote to raise and appropriate or take from available funds the sum of $790,000 to fund school department expenses or take any other action relative thereto? Out-of-district costs, $600,000. Chromebook replacements, $100,000. and van leases, $90,000. This is requested by the school committee, recommended by the finance committee and the select board. The funding source is free cash. All those in favor of adopting Article number 19 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 20, will the town vote to amend the Rockland Town Code Division 2, General Bylaws, Part 1, Administrative Legislation, Chapter 38.6, Department Revolving Funds by adding the following authorized revolving funds or take any other action relative thereto. This is requested by the Board of Water Commissioners. The department is the Abington Rockland Joint Water Works, the Water Department Revolving Fund, Water Department Revenues, and Water Department Infrastructure Improvements. The approval is recommended by the Finance Committee and the Select Board. The funding source is service fees related to the fund. All those in favor of adopting Article 20 signify with the show of questions. Okay, come down. Gives me a break.
Kim McDonald, 190 Myrtle Street. I need you to explain this in plain English, because I don't know what this means.
Okay, Crystal, where's our water superintendent? Crystal, could you explain what this and how this works?
I didn't submit this, so I don't really know.
I see Crystal's looking at me, so I'm not sure where the woman went, but through you, Mr. Moderator.
She's up in the back.
Right. So revolving funds are separate funds set up by the town accountant that take in receipts for a certain purpose, and then those funds are only used for those related purposes. So it's a way to kind of segregate funding, again, making sure that the source is used for the intended purpose. You'll see two articles later, the next article is creating another one for tax title, and you'll see two articles later is where we set the maximum spending limits for all of our existing revolving funds. That's something that's required by state law. So it's something allowed in state municipal finance law, again, so that we don't have to rely on taxation, property taxes, or the general fund. There's certain programs or operations that generate their own revenue, and then that revenue can be used for that purpose. And what the Water Department has talked about is using this for infrastructure improvements, and which we support.
So this was a last-minute thing that we had talked about, and I didn't realize we were doing this right away. But yes, I do know what this is for, and it is so that we can accept money and use it right away out of the same account. So it actually just makes things a lot easier for us to operate. Make sense?
Doug, would this be similar to the Youth Commission taking in service fees, and then that's how they fund part of their programs? Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So if anybody's familiar with I'm just using the Youth Commission, anything that comes in, money they bring in, they can use it to pay. Out of that, they can use it to pay whatever they have to pay for, salaries, whatever, it's in there on their programs. Does that answer your question, ma'am? Thank you. And you gave me a break to drink some water. Article 20 will, Article 20, did we already vote?
You didn't vote.
No. Got me all confused. Article number 20. Finance Committee and the Select Board have recommended approval. All those in favor of adopting Article 20 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 21, will the town vote to amend the Rockland Town Code Division 2, General Bylaws Part 1, Administrative Legislation, Chapter 38.6, Department Revolving Funds by adding the following authorized revolving funds or take any other action relative thereto. This has to do with the Treasurer's Office, a tax title revolving fund. It comes in from tax title revenues and tax title use of funds for tax title legal fees. Requested by the town treasurer, recommended by the Finance Committee and Select Board, and funding source service fees related to the fund. All those in favor of adopting Article 21 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 22, will the town vote to authorize and/or reauthorize revolving funds for fiscal year 2026 pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E and a half, as amended for the following purposes, authorized to expend the amount shown below or take any other action relative thereto. There is your whole list. It includes many of the departments. It was requested by the town accountant, and every year it's requested by the town accountant. Approval recommended by the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and the same thing, the funding source is service fees related to each fund. All those in favor of adopting Article 22 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed? That's a vote. Article 23. This is the Rockland Fire Station. The same as we went through with the sewer department. An article was placed in the warrant to get it in the warrant. And before you on page 47 is the motion which is set by bond counsel, which would, if it passes, they have to follow the guidelines. So Chief Duffy is going to read this motion. I will ask for a second, and then we have other people that are going to speak. Chief Duffy.
Good evening again, Rockland. Motion that the town appropriates $26,100,000 to pay costs of designing, constructing, equipping, and furnishing a new fire station, including the payment of all costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet the appropriation, the treasurer, with the approval of the select board, is authorized to borrow said amount under and pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7, subsection 1, or any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore. No amount shall be borrowed or expended hereunder, however, unless the town shall have voted to exclude the amounts required to repay any borrowing made pursuant to this vote from the limitations on the total property tax levy as set forth in General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C, also known as Proposition 2.5.
Do I have a second? I have a second. We will now have discussion between the town administrator and then Chief Duffy, and you can see it's up on the screen, and I'll shut up.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I wanted to kick off this discussion by answering what I think might be a common question in the audience tonight, which is, why are we voting on this, given that this project already failed at the annual town election a few weeks ago? So just to back up a moment, a debt exclusion is an authorization by voters to raise taxes beyond the Proposition 2.5 limit. And that requires both a successful majority ballot vote at a town election and a 2/3 majority approval at a town meeting. Rockland is a little unusual in that we have our town election before our town meeting. Most other towns do it in reverse so that voters have the opportunity to hear presentations and discussions before they go to the ballot and vote. But this is the tradition here in Rockland. So again, the question that I'm anticipating some of you may have is, why are we voting on this, given that it failed at the election? And the reason is both the fire station project, which we're discussing now, and then later we'll talk about the ladder truck capital exclusion, both were defeated by narrow margins. And hopefully you can see on the screen, I circled in red the votes, the numbers, as well as the percentages. If the projects fail to get the required 2/3 approval tonight, then these projects as currently envisioned are dead and they will not proceed. If either of them do pass tonight, then the select board has the option, and I want to stress it's an option, not anything automatic, but they would have the option to call a special election to essentially serve as a tiebreaker, given that there would be conflicting votes. So that's why we're voting on this tonight, even though it already failed at the election. All these decisions are up to you, the voters. If it fails tonight, then these projects are dead as currently structured. Or if it passes, there could potentially be a special election vote to settle the conflicting votes. And with that, I'll turn it back over to the fire chief. Thank you.
Good evening. And not only am I the fire chief, I'm also the chairman of the Rockland Fire Station Building Committee. The current members on those boards who've put a ton of effort and work into this project, and I thank them very much for doing that. James Killinger, retired deputy for the fire department, Gene Blaney, Krista Filippo, Austin Clark, and Charles Williams. They are all town residents. And then we've also received special assistance from Deputy Chief Thomas Heaney, who, although not on the committee itself, has put an extensive amount of time and effort in along with the committee on this project. We've been before the town 2 years ago with a similar project, a little bit bigger of a project. At that town meeting, we received a lot of feedback. The station's too big for Rockland, it's too expensive, we can't afford it. So we tried to listen to you. And while I don't think we hit exactly what you were hoping that we would hit, a free fire station, we came back with a smaller building where we were hoping would be a more economical building for the town. And, you know, one thing to please keep in mind is that if this vote fails again, the current problems at the station just don't magically go away. They're still going to require money, and from the studies that we've done, is that station cannot accommodate a modern fire department. And the reasons being is, number one, it's too small, we've outgrown it. The one side of the station was built in 1939, the other in 1978. Who would think that fire trucks would continue to get so big? Back in 1939, the fire trucks were smaller than the ambulances that we have today. Current apparatus are probably a quarter to a third larger what they were back in the 90s. As the mission of the fire department grows, your fire department, the men and women of the Rockland Fire Department just don't simply go and put out fires or investigate smoke alarms. We provide emergency medical service. We respond to hazardous material incidents, technical rescue incidents. Somebody may be trapped in a tree. Somebody may be trapped in a vehicle after a motor vehicle accident. As our roles expand, and they continue to expand as we saw in COVID, the needs that in the equipment that we utilize continue to grow, and they need to go on these trucks. That's why the trucks are becoming bigger. In a city, you have trucks that can dedicate a fire engine, or a fire pumper can do one thing. A ladder truck can do another thing. We, unfortunately, with the limited personnel we have, we don't have those abilities. So we end up having to try and pack as much equipment onto one vehicle as possible and utilize that for whatever emergencies may come over the course of the day. We don't get the luxury sometimes of running back to the fire station to get another truck. When we're out on the road at one emergency, we get called to another. We have to do with what's on that vehicle. So the vehicles are getting bigger. So the station is just too small. As far as the number of personnel, we have a growing workforce. When I was hired back in the early 2000s, we were at 6 personnel per shift. We're up to 7 personnel per shift. We also have daytime officers. We have a daytime deputy and a daytime fire prevention officer, as well as the fire chief, along with an executive assistant. So the department has grown over the years, and we've run out of office space within that building. We've converted closets into offices, or in bunk rooms into offices. The lack of sleeping quarters, again, like I said, as we've grown, one of the improvements within the Rockland Fire Department over the 80 years that the building has been there has been the diversity of the firefighters themselves. We now have men and women working at the Rockland Fire Department, sleeping in the same bunk rooms. Imagine one room, 30 by 15, with about 10 or 12 bunks in it. Now, there are only maybe 5 people sleeping in there at one time, but again, there is not much privacy. I think for today's diverse workforce, we need to do better. Decontamination of gear. So one of the big things that we're learning is that fire stations, not only when firefighters go out in the field and do work or go to fires, are we faced with the contamination of the job. When we come back, the gear that we wear into buildings brings back contamination with it. We wash that gear. We have special machines, special gear washers to wash it. They're in the basement. We're running out of room for that. We have special drying racks for those as well. We have them strategically spaced around the station where they can fit, not where they need to be. So as that gear is washed and dried, it still off-gasses chemicals. So those chemicals are in the air around the fire station. Also, within those same areas, you have the men and women of the fire department living, eating, and doing their daily work that they do at the fire station. So they're still in those contaminated areas. And that's where the new fire station design is, that everything will be substantially separate and better living in air quality for the firefighters. Lack of room for training. I think you all know where the fire station is. It's a pretty small lot up on Union Street. We have the front ramp and we have a small backyard. The front ramp that we have, the apron, we don't even have room to fully pull out the vehicles. The backyard, we don't have enough room to raise ladders appropriately or to train and to teach the younger generations on how to do their jobs. Enough room. There's no fire hydrant to hook up to. We utilize the one in front of the library, risking us putting ourselves in traffic and also tying up a couple of parking spaces in front of the library. New station, hopefully at the new site at Church Street, would alleviate those restrictions. In parking, we barely have enough parking for our on-duty personnel. At shift change, you have personnel parking kind of all over, up and down Pacific Street. When there's a major call, and people come back and call back, there is just no parking. Never mind if we have to have any visitors to the station or people coming in to pull permits and do business, there's no parking for them. And until recently, I didn't think our fire station was an issue for the people that work there or the people hoping to work there. All day Monday, a group of us performed interviews for new hires. We have two positions that they're not new. We're replacing positions that we've lost to attrition through retirements. So we're just replacing personnel, so they're not new positions. But we interviewed 8 personnel. We selected the 2 best that we felt would be the best for the Rockland Fire Department. Our number 1 candidate, one of his reasons for not coming to the station or coming to the Rockland Fire Department was he did not want to work in a deplorable station in conditions. And that came right from him when he denied the job. So it does affect us in that way. Mr. Lapp? So as you can see, we tried to listen. We brought back a smaller station. On your left is the original 33,000 square foot station that we originally proposed 2 years ago. That had a price tag at the time of $32 million. With inflation in today's dollars, that's $36 million. So in 2 years, that's gone up by $4 million, unfortunately. The station on your left, that is the new station. It's a smaller, a little bit more economical. It's not going to fit the fire station. Hopefully it won't fit the fire department that's needed for this town in 40 years. But it will work for today, and it will work for the near future. Until, maybe we think of a substation or how we're going to do that. This station's just 25,000 square feet. It still meets the goal. It's still a larger building, accommodates the proper business for the department, and $26.1 million. I'm going to turn over the financial aspect of the station to Mr. Lapp. He just has a much better understanding of it and can explain it better than I can. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Chief. I alluded to this in my... Thank you. I alluded to this in my budget message. I just thought it would be helpful for you all to see a chart of the average single-family property tax bills in every community in Plymouth County. And in particular, if you can, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but where the call-out boxes are with the columns that are striped, starting at the left, you'll see the county average. That's $7,951. The statewide average at $7,732. Right in the middle is the county median at $7,367. And then the call-out box all the way to the right is the town of Rockland's average single-family tax bill at $7,072. So again, this is just showing you visually what I alluded to earlier about our current tax burden in town compared to our neighbors and the statewide average. I think this slide is probably the one that you are most interested in, which is how much will this project cost you? We've done a lot of community outreach already on this. We've done a lot of videos, pushed them online, so we're not going to spend as much time on it. But in summary, the average value of a single-family home in Rockland is currently $517,355. So the numbers you see below in this chart are based on that average home value. So if your home is valued at more than $517,000, your cost impact will be proportionally larger. If your house is valued at less than $517,000, it'll be proportionally less. And if you look at that, you'll see the first 2 years, those first two rows, 2026 and 2027, the cost is not that great, relatively speaking, because this involves additional engineering and design work. The construction hasn't really started yet. But once we get into 2028 going forward, that's where all the large costs hit, and the average annual property tax increase for this project would be $223 a year, or $18.61 per month. Next, as the chief just alluded to, the previous project that was rejected 2 years ago was presented at $33.2 million, as the chief showed in that prior slide, and this is based on hard cost estimating numbers from independent construction cost estimators. It's already gone up by 8.4%. So the point of this slide is we understand this is an expensive project, but as the chief said, if this does not pass, the problems don't magically disappear. They will have to be addressed at some point in the future, and the cost is only going to continue to go up and cost taxpayers even more the longer we wait. Chief, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you, Doug. So for the next few minutes as we discuss this project, I want you all just to please consider the men and women of the Rockland Fire Department, the men and women that come out to help you in the middle of the night. We don't need a show of hands, but just think about if you've had to call the fire department and the timely services they provided, and think about them. We need to keep them safe. And you'll hear more on that, I hope. But I do appreciate everyone's open thinking tonight.
Mr. Moderator, who said Mr. Moderator? Come on down.
Larry Ryan, 121 Concord Street. Chief, what happens to all the ambulance receipts? How much do you collect a year? And what happens to that money that you collect? How long have you been collecting it for? Because the people should know that we collect about $1 million a year in revenues from the ambulance every year that goes to the general town fund and doesn't go back to the fire department. So this has been going on for some 15 or 20 years since I've been around. And you add up all that money, and it comes out to probably, I don't know, well into over $10 million, I'm sure. So it's not like the fire department doesn't give back. And who wants to live in a garage? Would you live out in your garage with your car running? Just so I'm saying. So if you can explain how much money the fire department actually brings into the town every year, and how much over the last
Larry, they can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
I got it. I'll summarize it for you, Larry. So the Rockland ambulance has been operating through the Rockland Fire Department since, I believe it's 1978. I don't know exactly when we started charging or billing for those services, but we do bill for our services. Last year, I believe we brought in about $1.4 million. Christine, is that about right? $1.4 million in ambulance receipts, mainly through Medicare, Medicaid, and private health insurances. So Mr. Ryan is correct. Those funds do go into the town general fund. And while they don't directly come back to the fire station through the town budget, they do essentially come back into the station. We're just not in any special or for any special purpose or reason.
Any further questions?
Mr. Moderator,
Yes.
I meant to, can we, if there's any members of the Rockland Fire Station Building Committee that wanted to speak before we had general questions, may I do that, sir?
Yeah,
Okay, thank you.
1 minute, ma'am. I recognize Tom Heaney, the Deputy Fire Chief. Tom's not a resident of Rockland, but he has my permission to speak, being the Deputy Fire Chief in the Rockland Fire Department.
Good evening. I rise in support of this article. This is the right thing to do for the town employees of the fire station. This is the right thing to do for the town. We are still expanding. We are one of the busiest towns on the South Shore. Take Brockton and Weymouth, and we sit number one right behind them. Okay? We need a bigger fire station to accommodate the needs of the vehicles we have and the additional staffing of 7 people now to shift. I don't know when it's a good time to spend $25 million, but I know next year it's going to be $27 million, so I'm smart enough to know now's the right time to do it.
Is there anybody else from the Fire Department Committee? Seeing no one else from the committee?
There's Gene and Charlie.
Oh, I'm sorry. Firefighter, well, actually, firefighter paramedic Lieutenant Charles Williams.
Something like that. I also rise in support of this article. Like the chief said, the Fire Station Building Committee has tirelessly worked on this project. We heard you when you said it's just too big, we need to cut the money back. We went back to the drawing board, we did it. This is the best that we can do. And like I say, I rise in support, and I hope that you all will support it as well. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the committee? Gene Blaney, who's also our Youth Commission Director. I think that's the right title, but I'm not sure.
Recreation Director, but that's okay. I'm actually going to read this because I'm not really good speaking from the hip. So, my name is Jean Blaney. I live at 118 Turner Road. Yes, I am your Recreation Director in town. And for the past 7 years, I have the honor of serving on the Fire Station Committee. During that time, our team has dedicated countless hours, and I mean countless hours, studying data, reviewing designs, for me, learning a lot, exploring every possible way to ensure that our first responders have a safe, healthy environment to return to after risking their lives in the line of duty. For me, this mission is deeply personal. My grandfather, Stanley John Galinsky, served on Engine 13 as a Boston firefighter. His very first call was the infamous Coconut Grove fire in 1942. Shortly after he was drafted and spent 3 years battling fires for the U.S. Navy, he returned and went right back to the Boston Fire Department, where he was tasked with one of the most dangerous jobs, venting burning roofs. Back then, firefighters had virtually no protection equipment, no breathing masks, they had minimal gear, and no awareness of the deadly chemicals they were inhaling daily. We didn't know then what we know now. The white smoke, the off-gassing from those fires were filled with carcinogens. My grandfather died at just 49 years old from brain and lung cancer. Yes, that was work-related. He left behind my grandmother and 2 young sons, one of whom was my father at age 11. He never had a chance. We're still losing heroes, So I fast forward to 2017. By the way, I researched a lot, and there are a lot of stories out there about guys with cancer. So just bear with me, one more story. In October 31st, 2017, Chief Mario Arangio, sorry if I butchered that name, of the Watertown Fire Department went to the doctors. That evening, instead of taking his grandchild trick-or-treating, he had to tell his wife that he had pancreatic cancer. 1 year later, he was gone. Another dedicated public servant believed to be a victim of occupational cancer. These are just two of the many heartbreaking stories. The statistics are staggering. Firefighters today are still significantly higher risk of developing cancer due to the exposure on the job. While advances have been made, we must do more. Our current chief has done everything in his power to protect his team, but the next critical step is providing them with the modern, safe firehouse designed with cancer prevention and firefighter wellness in mind. This firehouse isn't just a building, it's a shield, a final layer of protection, a commitment to the health and the future of those who protect us every day. So I ask you to honor those we have lost by protecting those who continue to serve for us. Thank you.
Chief Duffy, is that the remaining committee? Okay. I caught this lady had her hand up first.
Hi, I'm Laurie Carter, 141 Rice Ave. I just had a question for the chief. I was curious about, you mentioned that this was just to bring us up to speed for now, and that at some point in the future, we'd probably have to look at a substation, and I wondered if we hadn't already examined the potential for a substation to solve half of the problems beforehand.
That's a great question. Thank you for bringing it up. We did consider a substation, maybe doing a renovation at Union Street and then a substation in another portion of town. Unfortunately, our current staffing at the station would not allow us to properly operate a substation in town. We would have to hire additional personnel, which would create another operational override within the town. To hire another probably 12 firefighters in order to bring to staff both stations properly and keep both areas of town with the proper amount of personnel throughout the day. So hiring an additional 12 personnel would be about increasing the budget at today's cost, about $2 million, rough.
This gentleman in the third row with his hand up. Yes, sir. Come right up to the microphone.
I'm Bill O'Flaherty, 26 Leisure Woods Drive. Family, friends, neighbors, and fellow citizens of Rockland. It's a privilege to be with you this evening and share the focus of the clarion call concerning this most important decision now in front of us. Our long-range wisdom now will determine the future of our fire service. 2 years ago, we voted on a proposal to build a new firehouse. Sadly, that proposal was not approved. Too much money! Well, the conditions that urged the call for that new firehouse then have not disappeared or diminished, and it comes as no surprise that since then the cost has only gone up. Witness the cost of a dozen eggs. The difference is, eggs are something we can live without, but the firehouse, which is already too small and dangerously unhealthy for our firefighters, is a threat we can no longer ignore. When new trucks, ambulances, and equipment arrive, they will not fit into our unsafe and outdated firehouse, which is already bursting at the seams. Would you grab that cane right behind you, please? Thank you. Common sense tells us the very simple truth. It has to be built for the lives and safety of our firefighters and better equipment to protect our homes, businesses, and the lives of people in our town. We can either build it now, and yes, we can afford it. Or we, with blinders on, we can once again turn our backs on our firefighters and place a much heavier financial burden on the shoulders of our children and grandchildren. The turnout gear worn by our firefighters helps keep them safe at the site of a fire, but the chemical debris absorbed there and brought back contaminates the air throughout the firehouse, causing diseases, including cancer. This gear needs its own safe storage space where it will not contaminate the air as it now does. The atmosphere where our firefighters live, work, eat, and sleep is poisoned with diesel exhaust, cancer-causing debris, and chemicals used in daily routines. I don't think any of us would endorse a son, daughter, or loved one working under these conditions. I know I don't. The planners were asked to come up with something that is financially more acceptable. They have done that, and we must not allow this opportunity to slip through our fingers. And now for the gorilla sitting on the couch in our living room. $26.1 million for a new firehouse and 2 more for the ladder truck that is desperately needed to retire the nearly 30-year-old and woefully undependable one we now rely on. This is, without question, one hell of a mountain to climb. But a mountain is climbed one step at a time. And just as when the our old car in the driveway heaves its last sigh, the very thought of replacing it gives us serious pause. But we buy it now because we need it now, and we have a way. Fortunately, over a span of years, the payments become manageable. Still, it's hundreds of dollars a month. Well, to make right for the fire service also gives us serious pause. But we buy now because we need to now, and we also have a way. Payments over a span of years are suddenly in the neighborhood of 1 medium iced coffee a week from each of us. It needs to be done, and it's long past the time for it to be done. Surely we can afford it. This is the first and imperative step in bringing our fire service out of the dark ages of antiquity and into the shining light of today's firefighting professionals. And who are these people? They are our first responders, our heroes. They are the courageous souls rushing into burning buildings when everybody else is stampeding out. They are the very fabric of our town's protective cloak. They risk their lives to save our lives, the lives of our families, friends, and neighbors. They save our homes and pets as well. They respond to medical emergencies and calls for help from other towns. And they do it all without any fanfare. These are our quiet heroes who always respond when we need them. And now they need us. Let us not fail them as they have never failed us. We also
Are you
must
almost
keep...
done?
Yes. We must also keep faith with our other first responders. Our police wear that same protective cloak, working tirelessly to keep our town safe. A well-deserved thank you for all you do. In conclusion, I am asking us all to join the rising chorus to do what needs to be done for our fire department. Thank you for listening, and may God hold us all in the hollow of his hand.
Is there anyone else that wants to speak? Where are you? Come on down, up in the back with the, I think it's a red shirt.
Little comic relief on the ambulance. It is a cash register. I got hit by a car in Rockland Center painting crosswalks at 10 o'clock at night. I left the emergency room at 3 o'clock in the morning. At 7:30, the secretary from the fire department was calling me looking for my insurance information. But I'm not here to bash anybody. We got to look at what we're paying for. You know, our taxes right now, our rate just went up. We got 2 schools over here we're paying for. We got a VOTEC we're going to be paying for. That sewer bill and that water bill is going to get pretty high before stuff is fixed. So never mind.
No, excuse me, the gentleman is talking.
David, I'm sorry, David Saucy, 111 Payson Ave. Got a lot of new families in town, young kids. These people got expenses with daycare, $400 or $500 a week for one kid. You see the amount of kids that go to the school, those parents are paying for sports. I just don't think we can afford to do this right now. I'm not saying that there's issues with the fire station, but look at what we're paying for now. Look what we're going to be paying for down the road with the VOTEC, the sewer, the water. Abington's over there right now, just about $28,500 for a new fire station and a new DPW garage. They just broke ground and hit contaminated material. Now they don't know where they're going to get the money to get rid of the contaminated material. So when we tear down that school and we find out that oil's been leaking into the ground for the past 50 years, along with the asbestos is in the building, that $250,000 to demo that building, not even close, not even close. Thank you. Hate me or love me.
Chief Duffy, go ahead.
Just to follow up on Mr. Saucia's comments, as far as the $250,000 for the demolition of that school, while we do not know what may be under the ground beneath that school, initial hazardous spill studies, words not coming to me, sorry, have been performed initially in small areas of that. And at this time, no contamination was found. And the price that we brought to you for this town meeting was based upon quotes for tearing down that, which also included hazardous mitigation of asbestos-containing materials within the school.
Gentleman up. I have a motion to move the question in a second. All those in favor of the motion signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, you voted to move the question. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to take a 2/3 vote because we're borrowing money. I don't think I'm going to get a unanimous, so I'm going to have my tellers come forward. We might as well do this once and have a count. All those in favor of adopting Article 23 at $26,100,000 for a new fire station in the town of Rockland, signify with the show of hands and keep your hands up until it's been counted. 80. Section 3? Mary? $131. All those in opposition to this article signify with a show of hands, and please keep them raised until the counters have counted you.
Section 111?
Just 11? Okay. Section 3, Mary? 12? Okay. 42?
John, this says both exclusions requiring two-thirds vote.
Correct.
I just did like the letter roll primary. That's what, I'll send this to you. That's what this is.
Ladies and gentlemen, those voting for the article was 283. Voting against was 65, which totaled 348 votes. Two-thirds of 348 equals 232. You have voted to approve the article. Yes, sir.
Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Henderson, 102 Arlington Street, one of your firefighters. I thank you for the vote, and thank you for all the work of the committee and everybody voting here. One thing we need to do is reconsider this article before anybody leaves. We got all the energy in this room. We got everybody in favor of this, or many of you are in favor of it, and thank you for everybody that spoke for and against it. But I make a motion to reconsider it so this can't be brought up later on in the town meeting and hurt all the work we did tonight. So a motion to reconsider.
I have a motion to reconsider the article and a second. Is there any other discussion? What does that mean? What it means is we need a two-thirds vote to reconsider the article. If you vote not to reconsider the article, then that means the article stays as it is. It cannot be changed later in this meeting. That's what it means. If you voted to reconsider it, you can do anything you want. You could re-vote it or whatever, but if you vote no, that means the article is the way it is, the way it was passed on the first vote. So all those in favor of reconsidering Article 23 signify with the show of hands.
Please vote no. Thank you, Teresa.
I didn't see your hand. Come on down. Come on down and state your name and address.
Hi, Deborah King on 295 Webster Street. and we all know they need it. I want to vote. Everybody wants to vote, the whole town. Mr. Ryan said, and it's probably for all you guys too, if Mr. Ryan states that we get $1 million in ambulance fees that go to general fund, if you can tell us that that $1 million is going to go straight toward that new station, you're going to get everybody to vote yes. It's not going to be an issue. So is there a way to get those ambulance fees directly to the building?
Who's going to answer this? You or her?
Do you want to go first,
I
Chief?
don't know, I'm asking. I have
Do you want me to go first or you, Chief?
Maybe I can quick answer this. Is while that 1.4 million goes to the general funds, the fire department budget comes out of the general funds. So essentially that 1.4 would come back either in the form of how we pay our salaries, or so by taking that 1.4 and putting it off to this project, and I would love to do it and it's a great idea. However, the town side, the budget side of the overall, big budget we voted would be short that 1.4. So that's why it has never been considered.
Makes sense. Thank you.
You are.
All those in favor of you got me confused now. All those voting yes in favor of, I'm lost at a vote.
Reconsidering, Mr. Moderator.
All those in favor of reconsidering Article 23 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's unanimous. You voted to not reconsider the article.
Thank you.
There's a question in the back.
Where am I looking?
In the back, left side.
For the folks in the room leaving, I ask that you stay. There's a lot of business still yet to be done tonight, so please, if you could stay, we'd appreciate it. Go ahead, sorry.
Hi, Marjorie Fisher, 118 Division Street.
Chief, could you pull the microphone down for her so we can hear her name and address? Just get up close to it.
Marjorie Fisher, 118 Division Street. This was not passed at town election, passed tonight. If it goes to special election and it's defeated, what happens then?
Sure, so that's a very good question. The question was, because this question failed at the ballot in April, it passed tonight. What happens if the select board calls a special election? What happens if it fails then? I can't speak for the select board. They haven't talked about this in a public meeting. I would guess that this project, if it fails at the ballot, would be dead in its current terms. I don't suspect they would take different action, but I can't speak for them. They haven't had that discussion yet, but I'm sure this will be on an upcoming select board agenda, and I'd encourage you to tune in.
Okay, Article 24.
Kim McDonald, 190 Myrtle Street. Since we've never really gone through a process in which it's failed and then passed, I want to understand the process. I want to know what you selectmen are going to do and how open it's going to be. Because you got to figure, you have a Monday night, you have people with kids who can't come, you have seniors that can't come. These are people that could come out and vote on a Saturday. I just think that we're here all for our own agenda. So what's the process?
Ma'am, that's not part of what's on the town meeting right now. You can have a valid question. My suggestion is, this isn't the time. We're going by what's on the. I have to go by what's on the warrant. It is something that if you would prefer it to be on a different day, that I would make
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking what the process is. That's what I'm asking.
I'm sorry?
I'm asking what the process is.
The process for what?
Now that we have the selectmen in charge of how this moves forward. Because this is what I've been told. Because we had a failure, and we had it passed tonight, now it's up to the select people on if we're going to have a special election or not. So what's that process?
Sure. So thank you for your question through the moderator. The process will be discussed at an upcoming select board meeting. It'll be on a posted agenda in a public meeting, and the select board will decide if they choose to call a special election to have essentially a tiebreaker since there are conflicting votes. So that won't be decided tonight. That will be decided at an upcoming select board meeting, which will be publicly posted.
Are you asking whether the vote would be on a Monday night or a Saturday? No. Okay. I heard you mention Saturday. Article 24.
Yeah, Steve Heffernan, 30 Reed Street. The only question I have is, it says, could call a special election. What's the alternative if they don't call it an election?
Sure. So through the moderator, if the select board chooses not to call a special election, then this project will not move forward because debt exclusions require both success at the ballot and at town meeting. So if the select board chooses not to call the special election, this project will not move forward.
All right, Article 24. This is the same as Article 23. The chief has got to read a motion, and it'll go from there. Chief Duffy.
Rockland, thank you. Motion that the town appropriates $2 million to pay costs of purchasing a new ladder truck to replace the fire department's current ladder truck, which was purchased in 1999, and for the payment of costs incidental and related thereto, and that to meet this appropriation, said amount shall be raised by taxation in the fiscal year commencing July 1, 2025, but only in the event that the town shall have approved the one-time exclusion of this amount from the limitation on total property taxes set forth in General Law, Chapter 59, Section 21C, also known as Proposition 2.5.
I need a second. We have a motion and a second. Chief Duffy.
Rockland, thank you. I come to you again with another big ask. Our current ladder truck, which was purchased in 1999 for $478,000. We had it refurbished back in 2016. The truck looks like it's in great shape, but once you get underneath, it is not. I'd like to do a little quick kind of survey here. By a raise of hands, and this is not a vote, but by a raise of hands, how many people here rely every day on a 26 to 30-year-old vehicle to get them to work? Right? And you know how that feels. You know the cost that you're putting into that vehicle. So now take that vehicle that you rely to get to work. Now you rely that to get you to a building fire or get you to the aid of assistance that somebody needs you. That is what you are relying on in this town with our ladder truck. This truck has served this town well, but it needs to be replaced. My goal was in 5 years, about the time that I retire, was to be able to come to you and ask for a ladder truck. Unfortunately, the lead time on apparatus of this type is about 42 months. From the date that you order it, delivery is 42 months. So that is why I am here today asking for another big ask. The timing is just not right, and I understand it. However, Doug, if you could go to the next slide, please. We're asking for this one-time exclusion. This would be increased taxes one time, just for this next upcoming fiscal year, July 1st, 2025 to June 30th, 2026. A one-year increase of $300 for your average home. And now is the time that we do this, before the major payments for the VOTEC come into play, before the major payments for the new fire station, hopefully that you just voted here and will hopefully turn out for at the next special elections. So now is the time to do this. This is a one-time increase, and then they're gone. They drop right off. So again, I ask you, similar to the fire station, for your support on this article. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Doug, do you have an explanation on the finance of this?
Sure. So just to be clear, a capital outlay expenditure exclusion does not involve borrowing, does not involve debt. This would be a one-year only tax increase. So it is a Proposition 2.5 exclusion because we're going beyond our Proposition 2.5 limits. So taxes would go up for 1 year only, and we'd raise the full amount, and then that tax increase would immediately disappear the next year. The benefits of this type of funding is that without borrowing, we avoid all the borrowing costs and we avoid paying any interest. There's no interest involved with this, so it is the least costly way to finance a project like this. Again, we have on an average single-family home valued at $517,000. The one-year cost will be $300. And this is also timed in a way that if the fire station project ultimately passes out a ballot, if you remember back to what we described before, the first year or two, there's not much cost with a fire station project. So the idea is if this were to pass, the one-year tax increase would hit for the ladder truck, then it would go away, and if the fire station project passes, then later that tax increase would occur, so they're not overlapping at the same time. I hope that's clear. Thank you.
Questions? Seeing no hands right. Could you come down to the microphone so everyone can hear you?
David Bain, 8 Northfield Drive. I was questioned, is the new truck company, is that going to be a Quint? Is it going to be a Quint? No Quint?
I'll explain it to them.
No pumper? No, is it going to be any?
Let me explain that. So the question from the floor is, will this truck be a Quint or a pumper? So no, this truck will not have a pump or carry water. It is strictly a ladder truck, and it carries numerous ladders, different types of ladders, different lengths, as well as the ladder that you see on top. It will not have a bucket on it. In 30 years or in the 26 years, if I said I'd be asking for $2 million for a ladder truck, I would have been shocked. So the goal is on this is to keep the costs as low as possible and come in well under that $2 million. But unfortunately, the way the contracts are being written now is if any cost increases occur over the contract or build period, we would be responsible for those. So that is why the number for such a truck without a pump or without being able to carry water.
Any other questions? Come on down.
It's me again. Debbie King, 295 Webster Street. Chief, I was wondering if will this fit in the old station?
So yes, we would have to purchase this truck to fit in the old station. And the reasoning behind that is we don't know what the exact time frame on the new station would be. If we're lucky enough to get it, fingers crossed. You know, I would hate to order a truck that would fit in the new station, something be delayed on the new station, and then not be able to have a home for it. So we will have to design this vehicle to fit into the current Rockland Fire Station.
And my second question was, have we ask the state, not that there's going to be much extra money for us, but any grants possibly for this equipment?
So we currently have a grant in, or a grant application in on this vehicle with the Department of Homeland Security Assistance for Firefighters grant. It's a vehicle equipment grant. They will grant, the grant maximum is $1 million. So if we are fortunate with that, then we would be able to put $1 million towards this $2 million truck and alleviate taxes for the townspeople.
So the extra million would go away? We wouldn't have to pay it and go towards something else?
Correct.
Excellent, thank you.
Come on down.
Tom Henderson, 102 Arlington Street, firefighter. Chief Duffy, I have a question for you. Not to put you on the spot, we didn't talk about this, but how have we done with AFG grants and equipment grants in the Rockland Fire Department over the years?
Yeah, Tom, that's a very good question. And off the top of my head, I don't know the exact number. We're probably approaching $4 to $4.5 million in the past, I would say 11 to 12 years that we have been successful in completing these grants. And these are not grants that I write. These are grants that predominantly firefighter paramedic Mark Oshry, extremely talented grant writer that we have on staff in the station, does not receive any additional pay to write grants. But thanks to Mark, we have been extremely successful. 2 fire engines over those years, hours upon hours of training, extrication equipment, all on federal dollars. And the federal government picks up 95% of the costs on those grants. So the town only pays a nickel on the dollar when we get, so we've been very fortunate to have achieved these. Now, talking to Mark, he doesn't feel that we're going to be too successful with this grant, but he told me that last year when we applied for the forest fire truck. And guess what? We have a forest fire truck of federal government sitting in our station. So fingers crossed on that grant as well. Thank you.
Motion to move the question. All those in favor of moving the question signify with a show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 24. I'll try for a unanimous, but if not, we'll have to count, just so that we can satisfy the state. All those in favor of adopting Article 24 for the ladder truck signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Mr. Moderator, just a...
Yes, sir.
Sorry to interrupt your meeting like this, but thank you all for your support. And what we need now is when we do have that special election, we need you all to get out and vote in the affirmative and vote yes for these projects. Thank you.
Article 25. Will the town vote to authorize the select board to request a special act of the general court in the form set forth below, amending the town charter by replacing the current town charter in its entirety and replacing it with the language as follows below provided. However, that the general court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill unless the select board approve amendments to the bill before enactment by the general court, and provided further that the select board is hereby authorized to approve amendments shall be within the general public objectives of this position. The chair will recognize Rich Penny, the chairman of the Charter Committee. Am I correct?
Yeah, Charter Maintenance. So Rich Penny, 30 Center Ave. Mr. Moderator, want to amend Article 27.
Hold on, I need a motion to talk about the article first.
Looking to make an amendment, have a motion to make an amendment.
No, I need a motion on the Article 25 in a second. Then we'll talk about the amendment.
Okay.
We have a motion and a second. Okay, now you can talk about the amendment.
So, Mr. Moderator, I want to look to do an amendment on Article 25, Section C 2.03, subsection C of the 2025 annual town meeting. The committee wants to remove Section C 2.03, subsection C on page 56 of Article 25 and replace it with the following. The town clerk shall appoint an assistant town clerk who shall serve at the pleasure of the town clerk. In the absence or incapacity of the town clerk, the assistant town clerk shall exercise all the powers and duties of that office. The reason for this is we want to make sure that the language for all the elected positions, clerk, treasurer, and collector are all the same. All right?
I have a motion. Do I have a second on this, on the amendment? I have a second. All those in favor of adopting the amendment signify with a show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote.
Thank you.
Mr. Penny,
That's it for me
are you
right
going to
now.
talk about the article at all?
No, just any questions?
Okay.
Come up and I'll answer.
No, Mary Parsons had her hand up first. Come over and take a seat, Rich. It's not plugged in. Mary. Okay.
Mary Parsons, 754 Union Street. Did everyone read all 21 pages in here? Okay, so you understand all of it. Because I have some issues with this article, period, because we're not a business, we're a municipality, and we have different laws that rule municipalities. And some of this I'm going to read. In it, what I found is G, page 54E, election officers pursuant to the provisions and requirements of the general laws of the Commonwealth. Well, actually, the town clerk did the appointing. But there are several appointments that the selectmen make that are out, not in this, like town council, land use council, tax title attorney, director of veteran affairs are left out, town accountant for a term of 3 years, because they appoint him for 3 years, dog officer, animal control officer, director of emergency management, 2 gas inspectors, parking clerk, a director of aging for a term of 3 years, an assistant zoning enforcement officer, assistant town administrator, town planner, land use coordinator, building inspector, director of weights and measures, and open space committee. And those are not in this article. They should, another one is IA, shall appoint a police chief, and there's no way to remove the police chief for good cause, but the fire chief is removed for good cause but doesn't have a contract, but the police chief has a contract. I was a selectman. We approved a police chief for 5 years. We gave him a contract, the same with the fire chief. Then on K, page 55, the term of office of town officials appointed annually and of members of boards, commissions, committees whose terms are expiring shall end on the first day of May, except that all persons whose terms are expiring may serve until their successors are appointed and sworn in. The select board shall make their annual appointments within 30 days following the annual town election. The current selectmen board violated this section last year by not reappointing 3 members of the open space committee in a timely manner. Someone had to write a letter to them, and they finally did it in August. The other issue that I have is M, page 55. The select board shall have the authority to reorganize, consolidate, or establish any department or position under the town administrator's direction or supervision at the board's discretion. With the approval of both the select board and finance committee, the town administrator may transfer all or part of any unexpended appropriation of a reorganized or consolidated department, board, or office to any other town department, board, or office. We elect town collector, town clerk, town treasurer. They have employees under them. Does this mean that the town administrator and the board of selectmen can reorganize, consolidate, or establish their department and then take and move, and there's another article to take and move their budget out from under them. These are all things that we do here at town meeting once a year. That's our responsibility, to approve budgets, to ratify town contracts with fire department, police department, highway. That's what we are doing here tonight. That's what we did here with the budget. And then under the town administrator, it has powers of appointment, ensure compliance with town personnel policies, collective bargaining agreements, and applicable law. The town administrator shall appoint all non-elected department heads and approve the appointments of all other town employees unless such appointing authority is specifically granted to another board, committee, or individual under this charter. I'm sorry, but I think the town clerk knows who to hire in her office. The same with all the other departments. These are people who are paid a salary to do this. These people answer to us every 3 years. If they're not doing a good job, we can unelect them. But to have us elect them and then have their department or their employees reorganized or reestablished to somewhere else takes away their authority to do anything. Prior to finalizing a department head appointment, the town administrator shall provide notice to the select board of the anticipated appointment and of the terms and conditions of employment for the appointment. The select board shall approve or disapprove this within 20 days. On the other one, there's approval of warrants or vouchers, including payroll warrants for payment of town funds by the town accountant, provided that any town warrants generated by the town administrator shall be signed by the select board. But there's also provision for the town administrator to sign all warrants. I'm asking you to not approve this because this just came before us. Last week we got to see the actual lecture. It was 1 day and 2 meetings, and there were a whole bunch of other meetings going on that day. So a lot of people were at another meeting that night. So I'm please asking you to vote this down because the Board of Selectmen, that Board of Selectmen, is not going to be here forever, and neither is the town administrator. But we're going to be stuck with this charter. Thank you.
Mr. Penny, I'm going to try and have him answer some of what was said.
Mary, thank you very much. There's a whole lot of questions there, so I may not be able to address every single one. So first off on this, this has been worked on for 5 years. It was presented last year, not dissimilar to what's happened with the fire station. The committee listened to what the townspeople said last year, and one of the most important things were the elected positions. So we went back, we looked at what we got for feedback. You'll notice that the elected positions aren't there anymore. In a nutshell, how this works. So today, any elected board or position, they have the authority to hire, right? We're not looking to take that away, right? This charter does not do that. What it does is that department heads, any department head other than elected, the hiring authority is the town administrator working with the Board of Selectmen. Any other employees will be hired by the department head, but the town administrator does have, if needed, final say. And the reason why this is that it would require every new hire to meet minimum job expectations. So every job will have what the minimum requirements are. So anyone applying would have to meet those requirements, go through our stated HR policy. Those candidates would get vetted. They would get moved to the department head to do hiring. Without putting this language in, currently, a department that is either a department head that's elected or a board that's elected do not have to go through that process. So I give a lot of props to the park commissioners. So they just went through the process. Our current charter did not require them to go and use our HR department and use those processes. But as a board, they made a determination to do that. And I think the process went very, very smooth. but they're not required to. What this charter would do is in the future require that to happen. We're not taking the boards away. So if it's an elected board, and it's stated right in the charter, they would be part of the process for hiring department heads. And then the department head would be responsible for hiring the employees. I also want to preference this. So this charter was done by what started out as 6 committee members. Unfortunately, through the process, one of the residents passed away. We ended up sticking with the 5, only because we had started from the process. We've been doing this for a couple of years. We, as a town, we hired the Collins Center. The Collins Center has done over 125 charters in the state. They work with the state government. So these are based on the best practices developed by the Collins Center and also by the state. Our current charter is about 55 years old. So a lot of the charter is just language being cleaned up. So, Mary, to address like the specifics, right? Like naming all of the appointings. That's actually, the recommendations are you create the charter, which is your 30,000 level. Your bylaws then come in to get you specifics. So as part of this process, if this were to pass, we have to go through a year process of reviewing every bylaw in town. Every bylaw that we have has to be reviewed. Make sure that it's not in conflict with the charter, all right? If it is, we have to clean it up. This also, if this were to be approved, this then goes to the Senate. It goes to the House first. They review it with their lawyers, then goes to the Senate. They review it with their lawyers, sign off. Then it goes to the governor. It's roughly, because of this whole thing, looking somewhere probably between 10 and 14 months before this would actually even come into play. Because it would have to be reviewed, they have to sign off on it, then it becomes law. Another key part of this. So we're 55 years into a charter. So we just talked about a fire station built in 39 and 78, right? So 1970, I was just starting, I think, first grade, and I'm an old bastard, so it was a long time ago, right? So this is how we've operated. Not getting into it, but when the Collins Center looked at this, the first thing they said was, wow, this is really antiquated and it really doesn't fit what recommendations are. Because it right now creates the town to operate in silos. So Chief Duffy and the crew working on the fire station, you know, I hear all the time, you know, why do we have a high school, middle school? Then we had a senior center. Then we had an elementary school. We've got a fire station. We had a community center. Well, one of the challenges that we have today is that each department actually operates in a silo. What this charter would do is create an organization where, and yes, this is not a business, but a business structure allows communication. It also would identify an individual who would be responsible for our town buildings. So Chief Duffy, who has worked his ass off, right? Gene Blaney, who has done unbelievable work on the rec center. I have been on the 2 school building committees. My wife was on the senior center, right? Not to say it, but these are all individual projects that come not in any sense of order. It's just, hey, someone out there is seeing a need, and because of how we're structured today, it just gets thrown at us. The other challenge that we have is the condition of the buildings today. So all of the department heads are responsible for the buildings they are in. Dave Taylor, who is our elected highway superintendent, is responsible for the town barn, right? The librarian responsible for the library. Our council of agent is responsible. Now, Doug Lapp has offered, and a lot of the departments have graciously allowed him to help, but this would actually now start to put in place a structure, how do we maintain our buildings? So we don't go 30 years without investing in an infrastructure, and then or 40 years, and then the only option is, let's come back to you for a debt exclusion, right? It's how do we maintain those buildings, right? So on the piece of department heads, so when we looked at this as a committee, one of the things that we looked at was the need for buildings. How do you do that? We don't have a process in place to create positions. This allows that. So if the Board of Selectmen looked at this and said, hey, we don't have anyone, a facilities maintenance director, that's something that we need, they'd be able to create that, right? So that's why we put it in. It's not just a department, it's just one thing. It's actually down to individual positions. So as we went through this, we tried to use common sense, and we used the Collins Center. We also used their expertise of 125 communities on how they do things. We also were very cognizant on this. So I'll give Hanover as an example. Hanover has an extremely powerful town manager. That town manager makes all the decisions. They're really not accountable to the Board of Selectmen. That's not the case here. So I know some people have said, hey, this takes my vote away. I'd like to counter that. This makes your vote more important than ever before, because the 5 members of the Board of Selectmen ultimately, and I sat on the board, and there were people who said, hey, do this. I'm having a problem in this department. As a member of the Board of Selectmen, I said, I don't have any authority. I can't do anything. This would now, exactly. The Board of Selectmen is the ultimate board that's responsible. And as we did this, and it was based on a business where you have a board of directors, that's the Board of Selectmen. You have a CEO who's a town administrator, and then you have all your department heads underneath. All right? So that's kind of it in a nutshell. If I miss something...
I'm going to let the next person speak. Teresa Buffum.
Thank you, Mr. Penny, for the comments and answering Mrs. Parsons' questions. Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for recognizing me. Teresa Buffum, 15 Condon Circle. Mary was correct in that, I know it was 2 weeks ago that we were told about a meeting, 2 meetings in one day, which I unfortunately couldn't attend, nor did I have an opportunity to look at the video. But I did do my homework, and I got the copy of the summary of the charter changes. So I started with the first one, update the recall process. Currently, due to the current language, the citizens do not have a viable recall process for any elected official. I'm thinking, well, that's good. There's a lot of things that are good in this new charter. Don't get me wrong. That first one, I'm thinking, this is good. So I go to the current charter, and I compare the current charter to the proposed charter. The current charter has numerous paragraphs on the recall process. The new and improved charter changes one word, meaning that the person requesting the recall or signing the petition has to make a sworn statement and not just a sworn affidavit, not just an affidavit. That would not what I would be called updating the recall process and making it so that we have a viable recall process, changing one word. And I think that word's appropriate, but when I read that first item and I did my homework, I said, hey, forget the summary. It looks like it's too broad, too vague. So I did my own thing. I took the current charter and I compared it provision by provision with the proposed one. Now, to your point about the elected officials, through the moderator, to Mr. Penny's point about the elected officials, the current charter provides that the elected Board of Assessors are able to appoint a director of assessing. Delete it from the new charter. The elected Board of Health appoints the health agent. Delete it. Doesn't even address it in the current charter. Some other things. The just cause provision and due process provision for the removal of appointed officials, such as the zoning board members, has been deleted in its entirety, giving the selectmen the right to just remove them. And no just cause, no hearing, no notice, no nothing. That provision's been deleted in its entirety. Mary addressed the numerous positions that are outlined in our charter that the selectmen appoint. Delete it from our charter. She went through them all. The one that really concerns me is the Director of Veterans Affairs. If we leave here approving this new charter, we've taken that word, veteran, right out of our new charter. When it's in the current charter, the selectmen appoint that position. Now, Mr. Penny, to Mr. Moderator, Mr. Penny had addressed that and said about the bylaws. All these positions that Mary has talked about, she forgot the tree warden, which is appointed by the selectmen, it's deleted. They do appear in the bylaws. Those positions do appear in the bylaws. But the charter, from my understanding, supersedes the bylaws. There's nobody here that is authorized other than the town administrator, because there's this broad thing about the town administrator that they can appoint department heads. So they will be appointing our Director of Veterans Affairs, and the animal, and the tree, and the gas, and the wiring, and the parking clerk, and the inspector of weights and measures, not our Board of Selectmen who we elect. And I want them to have that power. I don't want the Board of Selectmen to give up that power. The other thing is the current charter requires town meeting to approve monetary settlements made by the selectmen. So if the selectmen want to settle something, and they have the right to do that, and they want to settle for $2 million, and they come to town meeting to get that appropriated, and we say no, $1 million, then they're got to settle it for $1 million. That is deleted. Totally eliminates that oversight. So they can, in fact, settle for whatever they want without our input. Deleted from the current charter is also, this was a good one, the police chief's full authority to appoint, demote, suspend, and terminate of police officers, along with the process for appointment of the police officers. Big long paragraph about that, just delete it. My problem is, none of this was on this summary. I mean, I had to do all this research. I spent 8 hours doing this to bring it to everybody's attention. Also, there's a clause in the charter, and I don't know whether it's good or not, but it says the school committee is responsible for supervising private schools established within the town. Delete it. I don't know why. Maybe there's a good reason. He addressed Mr. Moderator, through Mr. Moderator, Mr. Penny had addressed made an amendment about the assistant town clerk, so I won't talk about that. The qualifications and requirements for the town administrator were enumerated and very detailed in our current charter. No longer. Delete it. Now, here's another one. The town administrator in our current charter must post a bond for the faithful performance of his duties, which the town pays for, but a bond is short money, and that's a lot of protection. Delete it. Delete it. The town administrator, and I'm not addressing my comments to anybody on the stage, that bond posting by the town administrator has been deleted. No, I don't understand why this was taken out. Wait a minute.
Teresa, how about if you let Mr. Penny?
He spoke for more than 5 minutes. And
You have too.
Is that in the rules? Is that in the rules? Yeah, right. I just got a couple more. All right, I'll go. The language about the town administrator being convicted of a crime has been taken out, that he's not suspended and he's not terminated if he's convicted of a crime.
I'm gonna let Rich make it quick.
So
answer a couple of her questions.
Just quickly. So when this charter was originally done 55 years ago, it got into specifics. And again, this kind of goes back to what the recommendation of the state as well as the Collins Center. So a charter takes a lot to change. So I'll give you, in 1970, we had positions back then that are no longer in place, right? But because it's in the charter, it's still there. Since then, we've created new positions, but they're not addressed in the charter because those things should not be in the charter. Again, it's a 30,000 foot. It's the bylaws what actually make it up, right? And kind of going back is a bylaw review that is part of this, and then every 5 years we have to go over every bylaw. We don't have that today, right? So to that, to make a charter change, and you know, it has to go through the vote, and then it has to go to the state to get certified, can take up to a year to do it, where a bylaw can be done at town meeting. Everyone in this room has the vote to do it, but it becomes effective immediately. So if there are positions, if there are changes that need to be made based on the charter, then you do the bylaws underneath. So that's kind of that's why there's not all those details, because there are jobs that did not exist 55 years ago, and there are jobs today that do, that are not called out in that. So
Okay,
it just allows us-
that answers that question. I'll take this gentleman.
Robert Stevens, 138 Myrtle. And I did cut my hair, Mr. Moderator, so there's no issues with my gender this time. My question is, I guess, I also happen to volunteer on our Board of Health here in Rockland. And the issue with the, I guess it would be an accountability issue, is that, like, if I like my selectman and I approve of a job that, you know, say water and sewer, but maybe not health, or health and sewer, but maybe not water, and I, you know, 2 out of the 3 I approve, and then 1 I don't, then I'm kind of like going to vote for them again, even if that third one isn't really, you know, up to my liking. With this, we kind of have how it is now, we have the ability to individually select which ones we approve and disapprove, because that oversight is done by those boards and committees. And if it's all under the Board of Selectmen, and I approve of a good 60% and reelect them, then that 40% that I disapprove of is just never going to be heard. And even though I'm voting to reelect them, how it is now is we have that sewer, water, health, and we have the ability to voice those concerns and really not turn it into almost an advisory board, because we have that oversight of those boards already. This, you know, appears to consolidate that all into the selectman and town administrator, which I don't know. The fire department, they went back and they listened to us, and they came back and they presented something it felt like they listened to us. But we voted this down, I think it was last year or the year before, but it just does not feel like what happened with the fire department. It just doesn't feel like we were listened to.
Thank you. Hold up, Rich. I'm going to let this lady speak, and then I will let you.
Celine
That's
Furlong.
all right. Go ahead.
Celine Furlong, 677 Union Street. I would like to make an amendment to this article. Under Article 4, recall elections on page 65, I make a motion to change C-4.06, where it says, immediately at the right of each proposition, there shall be a square in which the voter, by marking, cross a mark X. How many people cross X's at elections? None. We circle. So I wanted to say, immediately at the right of each proposition, there shall be an area for the voter to mark their vote for either or such propositions.
I have a motion. Do I have a second on the amendment? Second. Rich, can you answer this question?
I mean, the only way I can answer that is that's why this goes to the House, the Senate, and the governor's office. They make they'll review that, and if there's something in there that's...
Because they don't know we
Okay.
vote in circles.
Okay.
But everybody on that committee should know we vote in circles, and it should be marked the vote.
You can make it.
It's right here.
Okay, so you understand what this amendment, we're going to do this before we go any further. On the amendment, on page 65, if you just voted in this year's past election, what the person making the amendment is, you have to fill in the circle, just not put an X. So she wants that to change that to immediately to the right of each proposition, there shall be an area for the voter to mark their vote of either of such propositions. Anyways, is there any other discussion on just this amendment?
Steve O'Donnell, 71 Winding Way. It would seem that the last sentence of that paragraph, in the case of machine voting or punch card balloting or other forms of balloting, appropriate provisions shall be made to allow the same intent of the voter, which seems to cover that. And I would ask you, Celine, since I know you work elections, if I were to make an X in the circle,
Ambiguous.
you would mark it as ambiguous, it would not count?
People would, some of them.
Sorry, my question was, if I, as a voter, put an X in the circle, and this goes to anyone that's certified to handle our elections, I'm not familiar with this provision, but if someone were to make an X in the circle, the machine wouldn't read it, but it would go to a manual count. And so I worry by removing this, would that remove a vote by someone who may not completely fill the circle in?
Before that question is answered, Liza, the town clerk, what would happen in this situation?
The tabulator would not accept the ballot if an X or a check, the circle has to be filled in. And if the tabulator doesn't accept it and the person walks away, the ballot gets hand counted.
And the ballot gets hand counted, okay,
If it's not fixed, it gets hand counted.
okay. On the amendment, all those in favor of amending this article that was read by Celine Furlong, signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, you vote. One more time. All those in favor of, keep your hand raised. Signify, okay, all those opposed? The chair is in doubt. We're going to count this. All those in favor, raise your hands and keep them raised until they're counted. All those in favor of the amendment signify with a show of hands. Section 1? 24. Section 2? She's not done. Section 3? 22. How many? Section 2? 56. All those in opposition to the amendment, raise your hands and keep them raised until they're counted. Section 1? 21. 21? Section 3? 13. Section 2? 29. In favor of the amendment, 102, opposed, 63. You voted on favor of the amendment. Sir, you're walking down. I assume you want to speak. Can you come up to the microphone, state your name and address?
Yes. Hi, Rick Snee, 74 Smith Lane. So I just wanted to address the powers of appointment. It's been brought up a couple of times. It's found on page 60. It's that section A under C dash 2.18 under the powers and duties of the town administrator. If you're only basing your interpretation on the first sentence, yeah, it sounds like a power grab. But if you keep reading, it's about consulting with the appropriate elected or appointed board, commission, etc. It's about finalizing the department head appointment, providing notice about, it even provides that if the select board fails to take action within 20 days, that person would be approved. So the select board could even opt to just not do anything and let the department hire who they want to hire. But more importantly, I've been looking at some of the town history, especially things that have made the news in the past 20 or so years. And we kind of have a bad history with hires. We have a health inspector, that is maybe serving time, I'm not sure, because she wasn't conducting health assessments of the places that we get our food from. We've had cases of harassment, embezzlement. Everyone's private information was accidentally leaked because records were not properly shredded before they were put into recycling, and the recycling truck dumped people's tax records. I don't look at this, you could look at this as, the select board's going to be hiring and firing people. You can look at it that way, but the ability to hire and fire is still with the departments, the ability to make the recommendations for that hiring. What I see is that we are adding another level of people we have elected to that accountability process. So it's not just maybe a board or committee of 3 people making a hiring decision, but it's those 3 people plus 5 people that we have also elected and a town administrator who has been appointed by the people we elected. It's not a power grab by anyone but us. These are all people from our town or appointed by people from our town. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir. I have a motion to move the question. Do I have a second? All right, ladies and gentlemen, this requires a majority vote. This is not a 2/3. All those in favor of adopting Article 25 with the 2 amendments that were passed tonight, signify with the show of hands. All those opposed? Oh. Come on down and tell us. All those in favor of adopting Article 25, signify with the show of hands and keep them raised until you're counted. Section 1. Section 3. Section 2? 53? 63. All those in opposition to Article 25 signify with the show of hands and keep them raised. Section 3? 7? Section 1? 26? $47. You have voted to approve Article 25, 144 to 80.
Mr. Moderator?
Yes, sir.
Tom Henderson, 102 Arlington Street. We did this earlier. Please don't leave. Motion to reconsider. If you voted in favor of this, you do not want to vote for to reconsider the article. We just do not want this to come back up later in the meeting. We have several more articles to do. A lot of hard work's been done, so please don't reconsider this article.
Do I have a second? All those in favor of reconsidering Article 25 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, you have voted not to reconsider the article.
Thank you. Good job.
Article 26, will the town vote to take from available funds a sum of $160,000 from the opioid special purpose stabilization fund to support a co-responder mental health clinician social worker role within the Rockland Police Department and grant support for existing private organizations serving Rockland who focus on the following outlined allowable opioid abatement strategies: connections to care, addressing needs of criminal justice involved persons, harm reduction, preventing misuse of opioids, and implementing prevention education, requested by the town administrator, recommended by the Finance Committee and the Select Board. The funding source is Opioid Special Purpose Stabilization Fund. It requires a 2/3 vote. I'd like to get a unanimous. All those in favor of adopting Article 26 signify with the show of hands. All those a vote, that's unanimous. Article 27, and I would ask the Veterans Agent to come forward. I know he's here. I'm going to read the articles. I'm going to read both Articles 27 and 28 because they are connected. Article 27, to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22nd, 1, inserted by Chapter 178 of the Acts of 2024, entitled An Act Honoring, Empowering, and Recognizing Our Service Members and Veterans, known as the HERO Act, provided for an increase in property tax abatements granted for veterans under the provisions of Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clauses 22nd A through C, 22nd E, and 22nd F, equal to the cost of living as determined by the Consumer Price Index for such year, or take any other action relative thereto, which was requested by the Veterans Agent and approved by the Finance Committee, Select Board, and Board of Assessors, and there is no funding source on this. Article 28, to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Laws 59, Section 5, Clause 26J, inserted by Chapter 178 of the Acts of 2024, an act entitled An Act Honoring, Empowering, and Recognizing Our Service Members and Veterans, known as the HERO Act, providing an additional uniform real estate property tax exemption for who qualify for an exemption under Clauses 22nd A through C, 22nd E, and 22nd F, which exemption shall not exceed 100% of the exemption for which the taxpayer qualifies, and further, to set the exemption of fiscal year 26 and future fiscal years unless town meeting determines otherwise at 100% or take any other action relative thereto, requested by the Veterans Agent, approval recommended by the Finance Committee and Select Board and Board of Assessors, and the funding source, there is no funding source. And I will turn it over to Tim and Tim is not a resident, but he's a department head being the veterans agent. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. What these two articles are about, the HERO Act has basically allowed or expanded our ability as a local option to increase the property tax abatement for service-connected disabled veterans in town. So service-connected disabled veterans who are currently rated less than 100%, they can get a $400 abatement annually. And the 100% service-connected veterans get a $1,000 abatement. But what these articles do is allow, they haven't been changed, by the way, since 2007, so it's been 18 years at the same rate. And so what these two articles allow us to do is apply a cost of living annually and then a one-time bump to basically double the abatements for the disabled veterans in town. So that's really, in short, what it is, and it's associated with the HERO Act. That was signed by the governor last August in 2024.
Do I have any discussion on these two articles? We'll take them separately. All those in favor of adopting Article 27 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 28, all those in favor of adopting Article 28 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 29, will the town vote to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Clause 56 of the Mass General Laws, Chapter 59, Section 5, which allows members of the Massachusetts National Guard or military reservists who are performing active duty under Title 10 of the United States Code for greater than 180 days to attain a reduction up to 100% of their real and property taxes for any fiscal year they are serving in a foreign country, beginning in fiscal year 26. The authority to grant abatements under this section shall expire after 2 years of acceptance unless extended by a vote of the town. Requested by the Veterans Agent, approved by the Finance Committee, Select Board, and Board of Assessors with no funding source required. Tim?
Again, on this one, I learned this through a lesson learned. We had a reservist that was serving overseas for a year, and in his unit, he found out other towns and cities in the Commonwealth had this provision in their town, which provides a full abatement of property taxes for a reservist or a National Guardsman, National Guardswoman, if they are on active duty orders for greater than 180 days in a foreign soil, foreign land, same with Navy and foreign, wherever they are, if they're not in the U.S., for greater than 180 days, they would be eligible for a full property tax abatement in that fiscal year. And they would just produce their orders to me, and then we would go to the assessor's office, and they would be taken care of that way.
Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting Article 29 signify with a show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 33, Section 59, effect of military service on salary, seniority, and leave allowances of public employees are as follows. Section 59, I'm not going to read this whole thing on the next page. Tim is better explaining it. Tim, I'm going to let you explain what the gist of this article is, and if anybody has any questions, they can certainly ask.
What the gist of this article is you know, if, and this really impacts reservists and National Guard men and women, when they are called to active duty and so forth, if they are a junior enlisted person on active duty, most likely they are very low paid. So this article maintains, for public employees, it maintains the gap that we cover. So for example, I did this in Hanson. We had a firefighter that was in Kosovo for a year, and there was a small gap from his military pay to what he was being paid as a firefighter. We covered the gap, and at the same time, that firefighter doesn't lose seniority, doesn't lose sick time, and so forth, vacation time, et cetera. So they maintain kind of their level and benefits, and we just kind of keep them whole, and we pay the difference. as far as this, I don't know how many military reservists, National Guards people that we have on public payroll, but it's kind of like a one person at a time type thing. It's a payroll article just to maintain their seniority and sick leave and so forth. So that's what this is all about.
Is there any discussion on this? Seeing none, it was requested by the Veterans Agent, approval by the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and there is no funding source. All those in favor of adopting Article 30 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 31, will the town
Thank you.
vote to appropriate a reserve from the Community Preservation Fund annual revenues in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Committee for committee administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2026, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation as follows. The appropriations from fiscal year 26 estimated revenues for committee administrative expenses, $31,936. The reserves, revenues for historic revenue reserve, for community housing reserve, and open space reserve, they are all $63,872. And from fiscal year 2026 estimated revenues for budgeted reserve, $450,172, or take any other action relative thereto, requested by the Community Preservation Committee, approved by the Finance Committee and the Select Board. The funding source is fiscal year 26 Community Preservation Fund estimated receipts, budgeted reserve, and future annual CPA revenue designated for the budgeted reserve fund. All those in favor of adopting Article 31 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article number 32. This is also a motion such as the firehouse and the sewer. Steve O'Donnell, who's been is now a selectman, but has also been the chairman of the Community Preservation Committee, is going to read the motion into the record, and we'll need a second, and then there'll be something to discuss after that. Steve O'Donnell, would you please read this motion as written in the book?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I make a motion that the town votes to appropriate the sum of $3 million to pay costs of replacing the bicentennial track on Reed Street, including but not limited to the reconstruction of all associated track and field event areas, drainage improvements, bleacher replacement, lighting, Grath athletic field improvements, associated engineering and planning costs, and the payment of all other costs incidental and related thereto. And that to meet this appropriation, $750,000 shall be transferred from available Community Preservation Act funds, and the treasurer, with the approval of the Select Board, is authorized to borrow $2,250,000 under and pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 44B, the Community Preservation Act, as recommended by the Community Preservation Committee, or pursuant to any other enabling authority, and to issue bonds or notes of the town therefore.
Do I have a second? Motion and a second. Steve, you want to explain this, what this is going to mean?
Just quickly, so for those that have been in town for a while, bicentennial track on Lower Reed Street has really been in a state of disrepair for a long, long time. Community Preservation Act funds allow us to do major capital improvements, and so that's what we're looking to do. Joe Reese is going to get up, or one of our park commissioners, to talk about the park itself, and then we're going to hear from Dan Kimball, our athletic director, and Frazier, who is the current varsity track and field coach and was once a varsity track and field athlete at Rockland High. So just to talk about the financing real quick, we talked about this. First of all, this is the first bond the Community Preservation Act Committee will make in the town. We funded everything straight with our funds, but we needed to do this so that we left some money going forward to fund any future projects that come before us. We didn't want to be in a position where we declined any projects because of lack of funds. And so what this will do is essentially takes half of our available reserve fund and put it toward the $3 million. That's why we're asking to bond the $2,250,000. What that'll also do over the life of the loan is reduce total interest payments, overall reducing how much we pay as a town toward this project. We looked at a few different lengths of term. So the Community Preservation Act is not mentioned here, but we did make a recommendation that we look at a 15-year bond. It's a good balance between the useful life of the track, so that the bond ends before that useful life ends, and we have to do something with it. And it also really limits the amount of interest we're looking to spend as a town. So with that, I'll turn it over to Mr. Joe Reese, one of our park commissioners.
Joe, just state your name and address.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Joseph M. Reese, 116 Huggins Road, Park Commissioner, CPA member. I'm here briefly on the need of a new track. As you all know, we've been without a track now for 20 to 30 years. It's time to rectify this. Many people before us have come before us, but the funding just wasn't there. I'm here to tell you now the funding is here, and it's time to vote yes. Thank you.
Mr. Kimball. Mr. Kimball's the athletic director at the high school.
Dan Kimball, 83 Concord Street. I have the privilege of serving as the athletic director at Rockland High School. I'm here tonight to speak in strong support of the proposed new track project, an initiative that I believe is not only long overdue, but absolutely essential for our student athletes and the broader Rockland community. For over 2 decades now, Rockland has been unable to host a single outdoor track meet. We're the only school in the South Shore League without a synthetic track surface, and among few remaining public schools in eastern Massachusetts incapable of hosting a meet of our own on our campus. This puts our students at a disadvantage both competitively and in terms of their basic access to quality facilities. Despite these challenges, our outdoor track team continues to grow, a testament to our coaches, with over 70 student athletes participating in this spring alone. The facility is utilized by our cross-country team in the fall, our indoor track athletes in the winter, and our outdoor track athletes in the spring, making it truly a year-round resource. Unfortunately, because our athletes are forced to train on pavement, we've seen an uptick in preventable injuries, and they aren't receiving the same level of preparation as their peers at other schools. This is why this project matters. Not only would a new track drastically improve the safety and training conditions, but it would also reduce transportation costs associated with always competed away from home. Most importantly, it would provide our kids with the kind of facility that they deserve, one that reflects the pride that we have in our community and in our school system. This track is more than a facility. It is an investment in our students, our programs, and in the future of Rockland athletics. I urge you to support it. Thank you very much.
And Kara Frazier, the varsity track coach.
Hello, Kara Fraser, resident at 30 Center Ave. I was asked to speak because I have a unique outlook on bicentennial track. I am a 2015 graduate from Rockland High School, a former track athlete, and now I have the privilege to teach at Rockland High School and coach the cross-country winter and spring track teams. Bicentennial track is the hub of our cross-country and track programs. The track itself is made of asphalt. It is, over the last 10 years, in my experience, getting worse and worse. Our student athletes are running on a hard surface that is full of cracks, divots, ditches, and it leads to a lot of injuries that are prevented if they had a synthetic track surface. Along with that, track and field isn't just about running, it's also about the field events, and our spaces for field events have also been getting worse. Our jumpers, both triple and long jumpers, are running on a runway that is full of holes, cracks, and even it's rooting up and they trip over it. Along with that, we also don't have designated areas for javelin throwing, and our discus and our shot put throwing areas are both in the same area that can conflict with one another. That being said, we have not been allowed to host a meet in over 10 years. Like Dan alluded to, it causes an increase in transportation, but some other things that if you're not a track coach or if you're not a track athlete, you don't know is that when our students are qualifying for the divisional and state level, we are reaching out to surrounding towns to see if we can use their proper facilities so our athletes that are competing on a state level have proper training before they go to those meets, which also leads to more transportation. Thankfully, the town of Abington has always been welcoming of letting us share their space. On top of that, because we can't host a meet, our student athletes that celebrate senior day don't get to have their senior night at home, sometimes making it really difficult for their families to come and support them. We've been fortunate enough for towns around the South Shore to allow us to celebrate our seniors in their space. East Bridgewater has allowed us to set up a little area for our students the last couple of years, and we've been very fortunate. But our kids deserve better. One thing that I do want to address is that our student athletes, in the last 2 to 3 years, our team has grown from just over 30 athletes to over 70 athletes. They are hardworking, dedicated kids that take the conditions that are given to them and they do the best they can. We are now up to almost 10 kids participating in our divisional state meet at the end of this season. And it's just growing the more and more we get into warmer weather and better competition and better invitationals. This program is growing, and with that, we need a new track. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none. Oh, I'm sorry. Teresa, how could I miss you?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I
You're
just have
welcome.
one question. Teresa Buffum, 15 Conant Circle. What is it going to cost the taxpayer? Because I'm concerned that if it, say it costs $300 or $500, now it's competing with the fire station town meeting vote coming up. And this is what people are going to say, you're nickel and diming us, vote tech, this. I'm not saying this is not worthy, and I'll probably vote for it because you all seem to want to vote for it. So, what am I going to do? But
I
my
think
question
Stephen,
is how much?
I think he can answer your question.
Okay, great. You could have led with that, Steve.
As I sat down, I was like, I should have mentioned this. So it's a great question. I appreciate you asking. So community preservation funds are pre-funded. We pay 1.5% on any valuation over $100,000 on our property tax, and it sits in an account. Today, I think we have about $900,000 with another, I think, $400 that's coming our way next fiscal year. And so we're going to pay out of that. So no new taxes. Costs you $0 other than what we're already scheduled to pay. I hope that answers your question. Oh. If you want to clarify, I'm happy to.
I'm sorry, but I rise to ask, it says that we're borrowing $2.25 million. How come
Correct.
we already have the money?
So we have about $900,000, so that's why we're putting up
I
$750,000.
got the 700, it's the remaining 2.25.
So we're bonding it against future Community Preservation Act receipts.
All those in favor of this article signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article, oh, I'm sorry. I got to do it one more time because it's got to be unanimous. It's either got to be 2/3 or unanimous. I need a unanimous vote. All those in favor of Article 32 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's unanimous. Article 33, will the town vote to approve and expend from the Community Preservation Fund the sum of $2,200 for historical document microfiche services for the Rockland Historical Commission or take any other action relative thereto, requested by the CPC, approval recommended by the Select Board, the CPC, and the Finance Committee, and the funding source is the Community Preservation Act Funds, Historic Resources Reserve. All those in favor of adopting Article 33 signify by the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 34, will the town vote to appropriate from the Community Preservation Fund the sum of $110,000 to purchase and install a generator at the Garden Terrace Affordable Housing Project or take any other action relative thereto? This was requested by the CPC, recommended by the CPC, the Finance Committee, the Select Board, and the Rockland Housing Authority. Funding source, Community Preservation Act Funds, Community Housing Reserve. All those in favor of adopting Article 34 signify with a show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 35, will the town vote to approve and expend from the Community Preservation Fund the sum of $20,000 to make improvements at the Beale Cemetery on Webster Street or take any other action relative thereto? Requested by the CPC, recommended by the Select Board, the CPC, and the Finance Committee, and the funding source, the Community Preservation Act Funds, Historic Resources Reserve. All those in favor of adopting Article 35 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's a vote. Article 36, I'm going to read the beginning of it, the first few lines, and then I'm going to call on Mike Corbett, the planner, chairman of the planning board, and Allison, our
Town planner.
town planner. Article 36, will the town vote to amend Rockland Town Code Division 3 zoning bylaws, Chapter 415 zoning, Article 5 building lot and general district regulations, 415-22 building and lot regulations by deleting 415-22B4 accessory structures in its entirety and replacing with a new subsection as follows. And I recognize Mike Corbett to tell us that he had had a public hearing on March 25th. Mike?
All right, thank you, Mr. Moderator. In accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Section 5, of the Rockland Planning Board held an advertised public hearing to review the articles related to the zoning bylaw changes submitted for the annual town warrant and for the town of Rockland. The public hearing was held on Tuesday, March 25th, 2025 at 7 p.m. at the lecture hall at the Rockland High School. The board reviewed and recommended the following zoning articles as submitted for Articles 36, 37, and 38.
And the next line, Mike, during the public hearing?
The planning board makes a motion to recommend. During the public hearing, the planning board voted with 4 votes in favor and 1 opposed to recommend favorable action at the town meeting on proposed Articles 36, 37, and 38.
Do I have a motion to adopt Article 36? I have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Corbett, do you or Allison want to explain what Article 36 is about?
Good evening, Allison Quinn, Town Planner. Article 36 is a request to amend the zoning. This article is consistent with the one of the next zoning articles that we're putting forward. We want, the planning board put forth this article to change the detached accessory structure setback from what is existing now 5 feet to 10 feet in all residential zoning districts. So it's going from 5 feet to 10 feet.
Okay, does anyone have any questions? All those in favor of adopting Article 36, I need a 2/3 vote on this. I'd like to get a unanimous. All those in favor signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's unanimous. Article 37. Allison, I have a, oh, this goes on for pages, my goodness. All right, on page 82, at the top, it should have said Article 37 explanation. This article replaces the existing in any residential accessory apartment bylaw or accessory dwelling unit bylaw by allowing an accessory dwelling unit by right under site plan review in order to meet the requirements of Chapter 150 of the Acts of 2024. I need a motion and a second to talk on this. Do I have a second? Allison or Mike or both, can you give them a quick overview of what this is going to be about?
Sure. So thank you. Article 37 is to make the current bylaw in Rockland that speaks to accessory dwelling units consistent with the new state legislation. This is just to make us compliant with what the state now says are regulations regarding accessory dwelling units in Rockland.
Does anyone have any questions or concerns? All those in favor, I need a unanimous. All those in favor of adopting Article 37 signify with a show of hands. All those opposed, that's unanimous. Article 38. the explanation that the board, first of all, I need a motion to adopt the article or pass. I need a motion to adopt. Second, okay. Article 30, it should say Article 38 explanation. The zoning change is intended to bring the Rockland zoning bylaw into compliance with the changes set forth in Section 10 of the Massachusetts Affordable Homes Act from 2024, Chapter 150 of the Acts of 2024. Certain non-conforming lots in common ownership will no longer merge by operation of law, provided they meet certain lot size and use requirements, and that the homes are limited in size and are not used seasonably or as short-term rentals. In creating these rules, the state is converting qualifying lots to buildable status while simultaneously imposing permanent restrictions that could, it appears, create a permitting environmental favorable to development of so-called starter homes. Between Mike and Allison, would you like to speak and elaborate on this at all?
Sure. Thank you. This is the final article of the evening. Just like the one that you guys just voted on, the common lots bylaw for zoning is to bring us compliant with the new state legislation that passed. It's that simple.
Mike, do you have anything to add?
The planning board recommends in favor. I'm opposed.
Okay. I need a unanimous vote on this, or we count. All those in favor of adopting Article 38 signify with the show of hands. All those opposed, that's unanimous. Ladies and gentlemen, I didn't think we'd get through it, but you know what? I appreciate everyone that came out tonight. I wish I could have told the other people that. You really meant a lot to the town of Rockland tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Kevin, motion to...
Second. All in favor?
Congratulations.